The battlefield is a graveyard of broken steel and fallen warriors. An endless swarm of demons and dragons blots out the sky, marching toward humanity's last stand. In the shadow of a massive wall, the few survivors left huddle together, waiting for the end. Hiyataka Kyoya thanks his guardian for everything, but Tsukishiro Tenma just gives him a playful smack on the head. Tenma is just an F-rank hunter, a guy who couldn't awaken a single skill in 20 years. Kyoya is a non-awakened civilian, rubbing his head and complaining about a hunter picking on a regular kid. Tenma knows he's nothing special, but his eyes are fixed on the podium. Standing there is the SSS rank hunter Amamiya Shoryu, the strongest man alive. It all started 20 years ago when gates opened, and monsters began pouring into the world. Legions of demons brought civilization to the brink of total destruction. Hunters were the only ones who could fight back, chosen by the system and granted extraordinary powers. The final 11, hunters fought desperately to prevent humanity's extinction. But even they were no match for the true powerhouses of the demon race. After years of relentless assault, humanity was pushed back to its final defensive line. 6 of the final 11 have already fallen, leaving only 5 hunters to face the end. Shoryu addresses the crowd, telling them they still have one last desperate chance. An unnamed mage steps forward, holding a glowing golden hourglass. She releases the artifact, and it begins to hum with incredible power. A massive gate of light erupts on the stage, tearing through the fabric of reality. This is the return point, a gate that can send a person 20 years back into the past. Shoryu explains that only one person can pass through and stop the invasion before it starts. Tenma watches from the crowd, listening to the impossible plan. The people start chanting Shoryu's name, knowing he's the only one strong enough to handle it. Desperate survivors beg him to change the past and save them all. Tenma mutters about how nice it must be to get a second chance at life. He jokes that Kyoya would still just be a kid if they went back now. He knows a regular civilian or an F-ranker like him would never be chosen for this. Kyoya looks down, saying he'd just want to see his parents again. Tenma gives the boy's head a gentle pat, a rare moment of softness. The crowd roars with hope as Shoryu prepares to step into the light. The SSS rank hunter looks back one last time. The mage tells him he's the only one who can do this. He has to save the world. He vows to protect the future at any cost. But his eyes widen as he spots something coming from above. He screams for everyone to get down. Massive, dark projectiles rain down from the clouds, targeting the podium. The mage tries to reinforce the barrier, her face strained with effort. The objects smash into the energy shield with thunderous impacts. With a final crack, the barrier shatters into a million pieces. The mage is stunned that their strongest defense could fall so easily. A final, massive projectile hurtles through the smoke toward the crowd. Tenma and Kyoya look up in horror as death falls toward them. In the split second before the impact, Tsukishiro Tenma grabs Hiyataka Kyoya's jacket. With a desperate shove, he flings the boy away from the blast zone. The force of the explosion catches Tenma instead, hurling him straight into the swirling portal of light. Kyoya can only scream as his guardian vanishes into the rift. Tenma doesn't look afraid, he actually smirks accepting his fate. A massive shockwave tears through the podium, leveling everything in sight. Dust and debris settle over the ruined stage. Blood drips from Tenma's forehead as he lies amidst the wreckage. Kyoya stumbles toward the crater, tears streaming down his face as he calls out. Tenma manages a weak smile, reminding the kid one last time to call him Big Bro instead of Uncle. Suddenly, the return point gate reacts, engulfing Tenma's broken body in a blinding pillar of radiance. A system message pops up, announcing it's correcting a temporal distortion. The artifact fully activates, sensing its user is finally crossing over. But the target has changed. It's not the SSS rank hero, but the F-rank hunter Tsukishiro Tenma being sent 20 years back. The light intensifies, dissolving Tenma's physical form. A beam of pure energy shoots into the atmosphere, signaling the completion of the jump. Back at the wall, the silence is deafening as the smoke clears. The unnamed mage stares at the empty space, panicked because she has no idea who actually went through. Amami Ashoryu is left speechless, realizing their one and only shot at salvation might have just been stolen. High above, the system detects a massive error in the timeline. It labels Tenma a critical defect and initiates the Deus Ex Machina protocol to fix the mess he's about to cause. Tenma's consciousness drifts as he wonders if he really just stole humanity's last hope. A red warning window flickers before his eyes, warning of a system interference. Then a blue notification confirms the regression was a success. Tenma opens his eyes and pulls up his status window, seeing himself back at level 2 with 0 skills. He looks at his hands, barely believing he's really made it back to his younger body. He finds himself kneeling in a lush forest, a world away from the barren wasteland he just left. A sudden blood-curdling scream echoes through the trees, snapping him out of his daze. Instinct kicks in, and he starts sprinting toward the noise. He stops behind a thick trunk, carefully peeking around to see what's going on. A pack of goblins is patrolling the area, weapons drawn and ready for a fight. Tenma realizes he's landed right inside a gate, the very place where monsters roam free. Even though he's a regressor, he's still just a weak F-ranker who's terrified of basic mobs. He knows the rules: find the exit or kill the boss, or he's never getting out of here. With no skills and garbage stats, he feels completely helpless. A countdown timer appears, showing him exactly how long he has before the system forces a change. Suddenly, a glint of steel flashes through the air. A sword strikes so fast its almost invisible cuts through the forest clearing. The goblins don't even have time to react before they're being carved up. Limbs fly as a mysterious figure tears through the pack like a whirlwind. A severed goblin head rolls right past Tenma's hiding spot. He spots another person nearby and thinks this might be his chance to survive if he can just get their help. A terrifying presence looms in the forest, its blade dripping with fresh blood. Its eye glows with a malevolent blue light, fixating on its next prey. Tsukishiro Tenma watches from the shadows, his heart hammering against his ribs. He realizes with horror that the beast is Twin-Blade Ku Chulain, a legendary named monster. It stands as a silent sentinel of death amidst a landscape of carnage. Tenma can't understand why a creature of this caliber is appearing in a low-level F-rank gate. As a panicked hunter ran past, Tenma reached out to stop him, but it was too late. The young man is hysterical, screaming for anyone to save him. The monster doesn't hesitate, turning its cold, murderous gaze toward the fleeing human. Tenma's face pales as the sheer pressure of the monster's aura hits him. The goblin snarls, its face a mask of primal cruelty. It raises its massive sword, the air around it crackling with dark energy. With a swift, brutal motion, it brings the blade down in a lethal arc. Tenma acts on instinct, diving forward to shove the stranger out of harm's way. His feet dig into the soft earth as he puts every ounce of strength into the lunge. The impact of the monster's strike shatters the ground, sending a shockwave through the clearing. Both men are thrown back by the force of the blast, barely clinging to consciousness. Tenma gasps for air, his mind reeling from the close brush with death. He grabs the hunter's arm, forcing him to stand up. "Run," he commands, his voice tight with desperation as they flee into the trees. Behind them, the monster stands unfazed in the center of the fresh crater. It gnaws at its teeth, letting out a low, predatory growl. The two men sprint through the forest, their lungs burning with every labored breath. They finally collapsed behind a large tree, and the other man asked if Tenma had ever seen a goblin like that before. He curses his weak body, realizing that even with his future knowledge, his F-rank stamina is a major handicap. Sweat stings his eyes as he tries to steady his shaking hands. He notices a distinct emblem on the man's armor, a symbol he recognizes all too well. The hunter explains that he's with the Night Crow Guild, and that they're supposed to be in control of this gate. A wave of dread washes over Tenma as the pieces finally click into place. He remembers the history books. This is the infamous Night Crow Guild incident. It was a massacre that shocked the world. An entire elite guild wiped out by a single monster in what should have been a safe zone. The realization hits him like a physical blow. If they stay here, they are dead men. He desperately asks the hunter for a spare weapon, hoping they can fight their way to the exit. The young man quickly opens his inventory, searching for anything Tenma can use. But before he can even select an item, a flash of steel tears through the air. The hunter stares blankly as he's cut down in a single, merciless strike. Warm blood sprays across Tenma's face, the world turning into a red-tinted nightmare. The man's sword slips from his lifeless fingers, clattering onto the grass. Tenma lunges for the weapon, his survival instincts taking over. The monster is already upon him, leaping from the shadows with a ferocious overhead swing. Tenma barely manages to bring the blade up in time to block the devastating blow. He's driven into the dirt, blood trickling from his mouth as he wonders if his regression has only led him to an earlier grave. As Tsukishiro Tenma lies bleeding on the ground, he laments how humanity's last hope is meeting such a pathetic end. A digital counter reaches 0, signaling a profound shift in the fabric of his reality. Suddenly, a system message flares to life, announcing the successful activation of the causality adjustment protocol, Deus Ex Machina. The system begins a complete restoration, targeting the critical defects that have held Tenma back for so long. With causality perfectly adjusted, Tenma is granted the X-rank trait, Talent Adjustment. Another window appears, declaring that his skill acquisition rate has been boosted, and his experience gain multiplied by a staggering 100,000 times. Tenma stares in disbelief, his mind struggling to process the impossible numbers flashing before his eyes. As his body registers the severe damage from the previous attack, the system grants him the Endurance skill, its experience immediately multiplied. A cascade of level-up notifications erupts around him, the skill rapidly advancing through levels 2, 3, and beyond. Within seconds, the Endurance skill reaches its maximum level of 10, a feat that should have taken a lifetime of training. A single tear falls as Tenma realizes that the one skill he could never improve has been mastered in the blink of an eye. His Endurance skill maxes out in a flash. Level 10 means he can keep swinging even with fatal wounds. Tenma reaches for the sword handle on the grass. His body can actually move again. The twin-bladed monster stands ready in the forest. This thing isn't playing around. Tenma kneels holding the blade. A new system window pops up, Talent Adjustment. The system explains that causality has been adjusted. He just landed an X-rank trait. Tenma can't help but smirk. Getting 100,000 times the experience, that's just broken. He thinks back to Kyoya. He had to leave the kid behind during the disaster to face the demon race. Everything he's doing now is for a chance to see that kid again and save a dying world. A blade whistles through the air. The fight's far from over. Tenma readies his sword with a new fire in his eyes. He's actually going to change the future. The system screen confirms it again. His chance of gaining skills is way up, and that multiplier is definitely active. Tenma stands his ground as a goblin watchman looks on from the brush. It's time to test this new power. His endurance hits level 10 just from fending off one strike. The speed of this growth is staggering. He grips the hilt tight. With this kind of power, he might actually make it out of this nightmare alive. The monster lets out a low growl, its blue eyes locked onto its prey. It lunges forward with a burst of red energy, blades leading the way. Tenma meets the charge with a powerful swing of his own. Sparks fly as their weapons collide. The force of the impact shakes the trees around them. The talent adjustment kicks in mid-swing. He just unlocked swordsmanship. The level-ups start flooding his vision, jumping from level 2 all the way to 9 in seconds. And just like that, swordsmanship hits the level 10 cap. Most hunters take a lifetime to reach this. The two fighters clash again, a massive explosion of light erupting between them. Tenma slides back across the grass, keeping his guard up. The monster looks confused by his sudden strength. The creature lets out another growl, trying to figure out what just changed. Tenma stares at his blade as the notification confirms his swordsmanship has maxed out. Usually skills take blood, sweat, and years to master. This adjustment is beyond absurd. The very feel of the sword in his hand has changed. He grips the handle, feeling the weight of level 10 mastery. A faint trail of light follows his blade. The difference in skill is night and day. Tenma scans the area. The monster has vanished from his sight for a split second. Suddenly it drops from above, blades aimed right at his head. Tenma catches the heavy blow, gritting his teeth as the ground cracks beneath him. The two exchange a flurry of rapid-fire strikes, neither side giving an inch. Tenma groans as the force of the hits rattles his bones. It's a brutal exchange. With both endurance and swordsmanship active, he lets out a roar and pushes back. He swings his blade upwards with everything he's got, catching the monster off guard. The impact sends the creature skidding back across the forest floor. The monster begins spinning its blades into a whirlwind, letting out a shrill scream. Tenma's hands start to shake. He realizes that even with max skills, the raw power gap is still massive. The creature lunges again, spinning through the air like a green blur. Tenma manages to parry the first few strikes, but the pressure is relentless. The monster screams as it continues the assault, its blades glowing with a deadly light. Tenma struggles to hold his guard. He needs to find a way to read its next move or this fight is over. Tenma tells himself to focus as the first level of the perception skill pops up. In this world, perception is everything. A flood of notifications fills his vision. Level 3, Level 5, Level 8, it's jumping up so fast he can barely keep track. Just like that, perception hits its maximum level. The monster in front of him doesn't realize he's dealing with a different man now. The twin-bladed creature lunges, its eyes glowing with a feral hunger. It expects an easy kill. The monster drops from above with a heavy strike. Tenma braces himself, his senses already picking up the movement. Tenma realizes his entire field of vision has suddenly changed. The world looks completely different at max level. He can see it all now. The exact trajectories of the monster's blades are laid out right in front of him. I can see them, he thinks, shifting his body to dodge a strike that would have finished him seconds ago. The two blades meet in a spray of sparks. Tenma isn't just surviving anymore, he's reading every move. Tenma swings his sword with newfound precision, sending the creature flying back into the air. The impact is so strong it shatters the very ground beneath them, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. He finally understands the true power of perception. The monster's movements are like an open book to him now. He can sense the tree at his back, the position of every plant, and even the way the leaves sway in the wind. Perception truly is a top-tier skill. Tenma wipes the sweat from his face, his eyes locked on his target. He wonders if this heightened reality is the world that high-ranking hunters live in every day. The monster stares him down, silent and calculating. It realizes its prey has suddenly become dangerous. A low growl rumbles in the creature's throat. It's getting frustrated. Its claws dig into the dirt, leaving deep gashes in the earth as it prepares to charge again. A blade whistles past Tenma's ear. He doesn't flinch. He knew exactly where it was going. The creature spins its twin swords, creating a whirlwind of steel intended to shred anything in its path. Tenma parries the flurry of blows, his movements fluid and economical. He's not wasting a single motion. He steps into the monster's guard and delivers a heavy horizontal slash. Their weapons clashed with a dull thud, but the creature's blade suddenly went limp and began to coil in an unpredictable serpentine motion. Tenma grits his teeth. Even with his enhanced senses, he can't block every single strike coming his way. He decides he needs to create some distance. Just one more step backwards, he tells himself. As he steps back, the system notifies him that he's acquired the footwork skill. It's about to get even crazier. Just like perception, footwork begins to level up at an impossible speed. Level 4, Level 7, Level 9. In an instant, footwork reaches its maximum level of 10. His speed is now completely off the charts. Tenma leaps away from the monster's strike, leaving nothing but a cloud of dust behind him. He lands gracefully, realizing he might have retreated a bit further than he actually intended. The monster growls again, its frustration boiling over. It's never seen a human move like this before. Tenma tests his weight. His steps feel incredibly light, as if he's barely touching the ground. He realizes he can now combine his maxed-out skills for a devastating counterattack. Both swordsmanship and footwork activate simultaneously. Tenma becomes a blur of motion. "I can do this," he shouts, charging back into the fray with his sword held high. He delivers a powerful vertical strike, the force of it pushing the monster's guard aside. They exchange blows at such a high speed that the human eye can't even follow the movement. The monster growls in annoyance, its blades moving in a frantic attempt to keep up with Tenma. Tenma manages to land a solid blow, a smirk playing on his lips. "How's that?" he asks. Without a second to waste, the green-skinned monster lunged straight at him. The forest is being torn to shreds by the sheer power of their high-speed battle. Dust and leaves fill the air. They continue their duel through the trees, a continuous storm of clashing steel that resonates through the entire gate. The twin-bladed monster lets out a deafening roar as it pours everything into its next strike. It won't go down without a fight. Tenma meets the monster's charge head-on, their weapons colliding in a blinding flash of energy that illuminates the entire forest. From above, the scale of their battle is staggering, a vortex of power tearing through the trees. Over the mountains, a new presence arrives. A bright blue portal ripples in the air, heralding the arrival of someone sent to investigate the disturbance. Shurigane steps through, letting out a heavy sigh as she checks her surroundings. She's not exactly thrilled to be here. As a C-rank hunter, Shurigane finds it hard to believe anyone could get themselves stranded in a lowly F-rank gate. She listens to the association's representative on the phone, her patience wearing thin. To her, this just seems like a waste of time. The screen of her phone displays the Hunter Association's official logo as the call continues. She's got a job to do, regardless of her feelings. She swipes through a holographic mission brief, her eyes darting over the details of the rescue request. The request came in because the raid's time limit was exceeded. It's a standard procedure, but she finds it bothersome. The mission report specifies an ordinary F-rank gate being tackled by a beginner's guild. Nothing out of the ordinary on paper. She assumes the guild members are probably just slacking off. With another sigh, she prepares to teleport deeper into the dungeon. She activates her spatial transfer skill, a vortex of black and blue energy swallowing her whole. As the teleportation completes, something feels off. Shurigane looks around, her eyes widening in surprise. The entrance area is a graveyard. Dead goblins are strewn everywhere, the carnage far beyond what she expected. She covers her nose at the stench, frustrated that they've made such a mess right at the start. It doesn't look like beginner's work. "Is anyone from the Night Crow Guild here?" she calls out, her voice echoing through the silent forest. "Where are you?" She stops in her tracks, her senses tingling. She can feel an intense pressure coming from up ahead. She looks out over a massive clearing where the earth has been completely upturned. This isn't just a battle, it's total destruction. Shurigane realizes that there's no way a battle of this scale should be happening in a mere F-rank gate. Something is very wrong. She catches sight of two figures in the distance. One is a human and the other is something far worse than a normal goblin. The monster stands tall, its body covered in wounds and its arm severed, yet it still radiates a terrifying presence. Tenma stands opposite the creature, his clothes tattered and his body bloody, but he refuses to back down. The creature's single remaining eye glows with a strange intelligence as it watches the young hunter. Shurigane finds herself trembling. The aura coming from the battlefield is overwhelming even for a C-rank. She can't believe her eyes. Is that really just a goblin? The sheer power it's putting off is making her knees weak. The two combatants stand perfectly still, locked in a tense standoff in the middle of the ruined clearing. Then, the monster growls. To her horror, the creature actually begins to speak. "My name is..." it rasps out in a human tongue. "Kuchulain," the monster declares. It's a named monster, a rarity that should never appear in a place like this. Shurigane is frozen in shock. A goblin that can speak human language is something she's only heard of in legends. Tenma looks on, barely keeping his feet. The monster promises that this debt will surely be repaid. With a final, earth-shaking swing of its massive blade, the monster prepares to end the encounter. A massive explosion of light and sound fills the clearing, forcing Shurigane to shield her eyes. When the dust finally clears, the monster is gone. Only Tenma remains, standing alone amidst the ruins of the forest. What on earth happened here? Shurigane whispers, still struggling to process what she just witnessed. She looks at Tenma's feet, seeing the way the ground has been scorched and cracked by his very presence. She shakes off her shock and runs toward him. "Hey, are you okay?" she yells, her voice full of concern now. She tells him she's with the rescue team sent by the association and asks if there are any other survivors from the Night Crow Guild. As she gets closer, she sees the full extent of his injuries. It's a miracle he's even still conscious after taking such a beating. Tenma's eyes are heavy with fatigue, but there's a strange spark of amusement still flickering in them as he looks up at her. He sees her worried face through his blurry vision, realizing she must be his rescuer, or so she thinks. Despite his state, Tenma manages a small smirk. "I am your lifesaver," he croaks out before the exhaustion finally takes him. With those final, cheeky words, Tenma's strength finally gives out. He leans forward, collapsing right into Shurigane's arms as she stares in stunned silence. The young hunter falls limp onto the grass, his sword sliding from his hand. He's completely spent, having pushed his body far beyond its limits to survive the encounter. Shurigane lets out a long, weary sigh as she looks down at the unconscious boy. Between the named monster and the absolute carnage surrounding them, she has no idea how she's going to explain this to the association. Lights flicker on above him. Tenma slowly blinks his eyes open. He finds himself in a sterile hospital room, his body covered in bandages. Sunlight spills into the room as he reaches out to pull the curtain back. Looking down at the peaceful city, he's reminded that the apocalypse hasn't happened yet. He swipes his hand through the air, summoning his status window. He stares at the notification, still processing the information on the screen. After just one fight, his core skills have already jumped to level 10. Seeing the talentless adjustment, trait confirms his survival wasn't a dream. He thinks back to the massacre at the gate, knowing he only made it out because of this broken power. He taps the screen to pull up more details on his unique trait. It boosts his experience gain by a staggering 10 million%, though the special effect is still locked. He realizes this is basically a system balance patch to compensate for his total lack of natural talent. He wonders if Kakeru Amamiya would have even received this if he were the one who regressed. Kakeru was born with overwhelming power, something Tenma never had. He shakes the thought off. He needs to focus on what he can actually do now. The door suddenly slides open. A woman walks into the room, surprised to see him already sitting up. Tenma looks at his hands, feeling better than he should after such an injury. It turns out his healing has been supercharged by a level 10 regeneration skill. He's still trying to process how he even unlocked a recovery skill while he was out. The woman starts waving her hand in his face, clearly annoyed that he's ignoring her. He blinks and asks who she is. She introduces herself as Yuna Shurigane, a C-rank hunter with the association who pulled him from the gate. He remembers her showing up right as the monster retreated. In the original timeline, that entire investigation team was supposed to be slaughtered by a goblin captain. Tenma points out that he's actually the one who saved them. Yuna admits that a survivor from the Night Raven Guild backed up his claim about the monster's strength. He's relieved to hear that someone else actually made it out of that hellhole alive. But Yuna's expression turns serious as she says things are about to get complicated. She explains that because of his low rank, the association won't be officially recognizing his victory. He just turns away, telling her he doesn't really care about the credit. Yuna chases after him as he gets up, baffled that he'd give up a chance for overnight fame. He doesn't answer, his mind already drifting to the demons planning to conquer the world. If Ku Chulain is already appearing, it means the demons are making their move. He knows he can't let the demons hiding in the real world find out he's the one who stopped their invasion. He tries to walk out, but Yuna isn't finished with him. She demands to know why an F-rank porter sneaked into a high-level gate in the first place. He looks back at her with a deadpan expression. He says he was just trying to swipe some mana crystals for cash and heads for the exit. The door clicks shut behind him. Yuna stands there alone, convinced she just met the weirdest guy on the planet. Tenma walks through the city, taking in the peaceful atmosphere of the past. He passes by a recruitment center, where a guy with a megaphone is shouting about porter jobs. Two schoolgirls walk past him, laughing and eating snacks without a care in the world. He can't help but smile, thinking about how full of life the world was before the end came. He finally makes it back to his apartment building, ready to just collapse for a bit. He punches in the door code to his unit, his body still feeling the fatigue of the gate. The door clicks open, letting him into his small, quiet home. He steps inside, relieved that at least here, nothing has changed since he left. He lets out a long sigh and flops onto the couch, completely drained. He just stares at the ceiling in silence for a moment, letting the reality of everything sink in. He raises his hand, wondering what his first move should be to change humanity's grim fate. He remembers that in the original timeline, the association's elite would be all over the Night Raven incident right now. But because he stepped in and solved it himself, the whole thing has been swept under the rug. He clutches his head in frustration, realizing how stupidly he's been thinking about the situation. He pulls up his status window and stares at the talentless adjustment trait that saved his life. The past has already changed because of him, so from now on, he's the only one who can do this. He clenches his fist, making a silent vow to become stronger than anyone else. He knows he has to stop the disasters that are destined to speed up the world's destruction. You recalled the old Hunter magazines you read, realizing you only had a general overview of the major events. He groans, realizing he can't actually remember the exact details he needs to prepare. Suddenly, his eyes widen as a thought strikes him. He remembers how his perception skill completely changed the way he saw the world during that fight. He sits up, wondering if he can use a similar trick to boost his own memory. He finds a textbook on advanced quantum mechanics and decides to give it a shot. He heads to the library, figuring if he pushes his brain with something this difficult, it might trigger a memory skill. He stares at the pages, his brain practically sizzling as he tries to make sense of the complex formulas. It doesn't take long before he's slumped over the table, his head spinning from all the technical jargon. He slams the book shut, feeling like he's just wasting his time on something he doesn't understand. But then a notification pings. The system has detected his high-level intellectual activity. A flood of screens starts popping up as his intelligence skill rapidly climbs all the way to level 10. He stares in shock as the notifications confirm that his intelligence has reached its maximum level. He lets out a small laugh, hardly believing that his crazy plan actually worked. He checks his stats and sees his magic mastery has jumped as well, though it doesn't feel as drastic as perception did. Then he wonders what would happen if he combined both his maxed-out intelligence and perception. He closes his eyes and focuses every bit of mental energy he has left. His mind drifts into a void of white space as he begins to dig deep into his subconscious. The system confirms it's accessing his memory pathways by activating both maxed-out skills at once. He tells himself to remember every single detail of the ruined world he survived. Flashes of his past life start racing past him like frames on a film strip. He finds himself floating in a massive sea of memories, sorting through years of struggle. A rapid-fire sequence of notifications fills his vision as a new skill, memory search, levels up instantly. By the time it hits level 10, he realizes he can now perfectly recall every single memory buried in his mind. Tenma's eyes narrow as he finishes the deep dive into his own memories. He finds himself sitting in a quiet corner of a study area, the intense mental search finally coming to an end. A satisfied smirk crosses his face as he realizes the memory search was completely successful. He steps out of the library and looks at a nearby cafe, knowing he's found exactly what he needs to move forward. He pulls out his phone, checking the time. It's nearly 3 in the afternoon before unlocking it. At the cafe counter, he lets out a breath of relief, having finally managed to recall his old bank account password. His expression sours slightly when he sees his meager balance of just under 3,000 yen. The cashier waits patiently for him to make a decision on his order while he stares at the screen. He takes a long sip of his iced coffee, savoring the simple pleasure of a cold drink in this era. Sitting on the terrace, he lets the sun hit his face, feeling truly alive for the first time in ages. He looks down at the people below, thinking about the demons already lurking among the human population. He decides his first major target will be the growth-type demon that caused the first wave of devastation. Suddenly, his phone starts buzzing on the table with an incoming call from someone named Hiroki Gondo. He stares at the name, trying to place who this person could be in this current timeline. He answers the call and is immediately barked at by a team leader telling him to get to work mining mana stones. Using his memory search skill, he quickly pieces together that he's being summoned to Seiko Nanyaji City. He recalls his previous life as an F-rank hunter, when he was just a temporary worker for various guilds. A memory flashes by of him sitting exhausted outside a gate, doing the thankless labor of a porter. The man on the phone demands he stop stalling, but Tenma calmly tells him he can't make it. With a deadpan expression, he explains that he literally doesn't even have the money for a taxi fare. He sits back in his chair at the cafe, waiting to see how the man reacts to his blatant honesty. Down on the street, a yellow taxi speeds through the traffic, presumably on its way to pick him up. He knows the dispatcher will send a cab anyway, but he takes a moment to check his updated status window. He notes with satisfaction that all his core physical and mental skills have already hit level 10. The taxi pulls up to a stop in a scenic area near the mountains, far from the city center. Tenma steps out of the car, ready to face whatever task the guild has in store for him today. He walks toward a small crowd gathered near a shimmering blue dungeon gate in the middle of a park. He looks at the gate with a confident grin, seeing it as the perfect testing ground for his new power. The group of hunters stands ready at the entrance, waiting for the raid to officially begin. As he approaches, a man with spiky green hair starts shouting at him for being late to the site. The man, Kazama Koki, is a D-rank hunter and the master of the Kuse Guild, and he's clearly in a foul mood. Tenma gives him a cold, piercing look that instantly makes the aggressive guild master flinch in surprise. A system notification pops up, informing him that his glare was enough to unlock the intimidation skill. Thanks to his experience multiplier, the new skill instantly starts leveling up as he continues to stare. He checks the skill details and finds it's a useful tool for debuffing opponents of a lower rank than himself. He ignores the man's bluster and simply asks to be lent some gear that he can actually use in the dungeon. A rattled Kazama tells one of his subordinates to just give the porter whatever equipment they have lying around. The guild master leads the way into the gate, while his team whispers about how terrified he seemed of the temp. Once inside, the raid quickly gets underway as a hunter slices through a charging goblin with ease. The cave floor is soon littered with the bodies of small green monsters as the group moves deeper. One of the frontline hunters stops to catch his breath and orders the porters to start cleaning up the mess. The unnamed porter, a young man with a heavy rucksack, rushes forward to obey, while Tenma follows at his own pace. A blade plunges deep into the green flesh of a dead goblin, sending a spray of dark blood onto the cave floor. The unnamed porter struggles to harvest materials, grunting as he tries to force his small knife through the monster's tough hide. Tenma watches the porter's struggle for a moment before calmly asking if he happens to have a spare dagger. Surprised by the request, the porter reaches into his pack and hands over a sheathed secondary blade. With a single, fluid motion, Tenma drives the borrowed dagger into the monster's chest with surgical precision. The porter watches in absolute silence, stunned by the incredible speed and accuracy of the temp worker. A flurry of system notifications chimes as Tenma's hands move like a blur, his butchering skill leveling up at an impossible rate. Within seconds, he holds a handful of perfectly extracted mana stones, having already mastered the skill to its maximum level. He kneels by the carcass and wipes the blood from his hands, leaving the porter to stare at the glowing stones in disbelief. Tenma stands up and looks back with a faint, knowing smirk, telling the younger man it's time to keep moving. They walk past a trail of slaughtered wolves and goblins, the gruesome results of the guild's efficiency in clearing the area. Two of the main hunters pause to chat, nodding with satisfaction how much smoother the raid seems to be going today. The hunter with the silver hair and black bandana looks back, briefly confused by the strange duo following them. Tenma stands over a fresh pile of wolf carcasses, his posture completely relaxed despite the grim environment of the dungeon. He produces a perfectly preserved wolf beast pelt, a high-quality item that far exceeds the skill of a typical porter. Next, he holds up a high-quality wolf fang, its white surface gleaming with a perfect finish. The silver-haired hunter calls for the group to head out, oblivious to the expert loot processing happening just behind him. As they follow at a distance, the unnamed porter marvels at how much faster the gate clear has become with Tenma's help. He looks up at Tenma with genuine admiration, wondering how a mere porter could possess such incredible professional skills. Suddenly, their path is blocked as a menacing figure emerges from the dark shadows of the cave clearing. A massive green-skinned goblin captain with spiky white hair and a leadership tattoo growls at them, its red eyes glowing. Tenma remains unfazed while the porter trembles, identifying the monster as a dangerous captain they accidentally missed. Tenma doesn't hesitate for a second, reaching back to grip the heavy hilt of the large broadsword. He draws the massive blade with ease, a sharp glint in his eyes as he prepares for the real challenge to finally begin. The porter with Tenma starts freaking out, screaming for him to watch out. He can't believe he's stuck with a defective F-ranker who's basically dead weight. Tenma just takes the insults with a bored look. Right on cue, a white-haired goblin captain steps up with a nasty grin. The monster signaled with a bizarre hand gesture, a grim omen that the danger level was about to increase tenfold. Heavy footsteps echo through the cave as the rest of the pack closes in. 5 of them in total, led by the captain. It's not looking good for a supposed weakling. The porter drops to his knees, already giving up on life. Tenma just sighs, wondering why he has to deal with this drama. The goblins don't wait around and charge in with a collective scream. Tenma doesn't even move. He just activates intimidation, and his eyes glow a sharp red. A massive wave of dark pressure explodes from him, stopping the goblins dead in their tracks. Up close, you can see the absolute terror in the goblin's eye. It wasn't expecting this from a human. The skill is already level 4. One of the goblins loses its grip and drops its dagger. It hits level 5, and another one just collapses onto the floor. By the time it hits level 7, the whole squad is being crushed under the weight of his aura. Just like that, all the underlings are face down in the dirt. Tenma stands there completely unfazed. The captain is the only one left standing, and he's breaking into a cold sweat, trying to figure out what just happened. Tenma's actually pretty impressed with himself. This intimidation skill is really handy. He hears a weird noise from behind and looks back. Turns out the porter couldn't handle the pressure either and passed out cold. Tenma realizes he forgot about the guy for a second. At least he won't have to explain anything later. With no witnesses left, he can finally stop holding back. He blurs into motion, moving way faster than any F-rank hunter should. 3 passive skills kick in at once: footwork, agility, and swordsmanship, all maxed out at level 10. He delivers a flurry of strikes that the captain can barely see. Tenma decides to use this as an experiment, letting the goblin attack just to see how his defense holds up. Sparks fly as they trade blows, but Tenma is just going through the motions. The captain is already covered in wounds, panting heavily as he struggles to stay in the fight. Tenma looks at the blood on his blade. He was hoping to learn something new during the scrap. He stares at his reflection in the steel. The system makes learning basics easy, but it hasn't given him any real talent yet. He clicks his tongue, done playing around. One clean horizontal swing, and the goblin captain's head is gone. The massive body slumps over, dead before it even hits the ground. The system notification pops up immediately. His talentless adjustment trait is working overtime. Thanks to the 000x multiplier, a literal wall of level-up windows floods his vision. In a matter of seconds, he hits level 20. He remembers he didn't get any experience from his last big fight, since he didn't actually finish the job. But jumping straight to 20 triggers a problem. His progress is suddenly hit with a level lock. A helpful guide explains the rules. He can't level up again until he clears a specific awakening quest. Until that's done, any extra experience gets converted into points instead of actual levels. He checks the details. These points are basically currency for the system shop. A sudden spark of red energy zaps from the screen, making him flinch. Tenma figures he just has to wait for the quest to trigger. He'll worry about what to buy later. Tenma nudges the unnamed porter, telling him it's time to wake up and get to work harvesting mana stones. The guy groggily wakes up, still processing the fact that they're in the middle of a dungeon. He takes one look at the ground and nearly jumps out of his skin. The goblin captain and its squad have been completely wiped out. He's totally confused, wondering how a whole pack of monsters just dropped dead while he was out. Tenma plays it cool, lying straight to his face. He tells the guy that some other high-rank hunter must have passed through and taken them down. They both get to work butchering the carcasses. The porter is just happy he didn't have to fight. While the other guy is busy, Tenma keeps an eye on him, making sure his secret stays safe. He pulls up his status window to check the damage from that last encounter. His stats are absolutely insane. Almost every physical and mental skill is maxed out at level 10. But there's a big red warning next to his level. He's hit the level 20 cap and his progress is locked. He's a bit annoyed. He can't afford to just sit around and stall if he wants to stay ahead of the demons. A notification pings. He's reached the maximum level for an F-rank hunter. The system warns him that the longer he takes to clear his awakening quest, the harder it's going to get. Tenma stares at the screen, trying to figure out what kind of trial the system is going to throw at him. The realization hits him like a ton of bricks. This is a limit break type situation. He breaks into a cold sweat. If he fails this, he's basically stuck at F-rank forever. After the dungeon raid is over, Tenma walks through the city, thinking about the future. He knows some key players are already out there. He remembers one particular kid, Kyoya, who should only be about 6 years old right now. It's weird seeing the world so peaceful. He pulls out his phone to check his payment for the day. Most agencies are notoriously cheap. His jaw nearly drops. He was supposed to get 35,000 yen, but the bank balance says otherwise. The guild leader, Kazama Koki, tells him he sent the main payment to the agency, and the rest is just a small bonus. They wave goodbye, thanking him for the help. Tenma just stands there, processing the daylight robbery. He realizes that even if his powers have improved, the world is still a mess. Might as well get used to it. His stomach gives a loud growl. He's been so focused on the system that he forgot he actually needs to eat. He figures he should probably grab a bite with the little cash he has. Then his phone buzzes again. He gets a notification that more money was deducted for taxi fare. Are you kidding me? He's absolutely fuming. After all that work, he's left with basically pocket change. That guild leader is a real piece of work. Later that night, he heads to a local supermarket. It's one of the few places open this late. He picks up a bunch of broccoli and takes a deep sniff. Fresh produce was a luxury in the future he came from. He can't help but smile. In the world before the apocalypse, simple vegetables were something people took for granted. Suddenly, he notices someone standing right next to him. He recognizes that face immediately. It's Yuna, the C-rank hunter from the association who found him at the massacre site. She looks a lot more casual in street clothes. Tenma gets defensive, asking if the association ordered her to follow him around. She's just as surprised as he is, insisting she's just here for grocery shopping. She's more interested in why he's smelling the broccoli like a weirdo. She gives him a suspicious look. She's definitely going to keep an eye on this guy from now on. Tenma stares back, a thought crossing his mind. She looks incredibly familiar and not just from the hospital. He triggers memory search to dig through his post-apocalyptic knowledge. The pieces start to fall into place. He remembers a legendary hero from the future who looks exactly like her. He decides to test his theory and asks if she has an older sister. Yuna's jaw drops. She demands to know how a random F-ranker like him knows anything about her sister. Tenma just smirks. There's no way he wouldn't know the name Shurigane Yuki. She was humanity's last hope in the future, the legendary Infinite Archer, and one of the final 11. Tenma recalls a dark future where Shurigane Yuki's younger sister was killed by goblins, leading Yuki to become the vengeful Goblin Slayer. He realizes that by saving Yuna during the Night Crow Guild incident, he's already altered history. Yuki won't become that monster. Back in the supermarket, Yuna is stunned, demanding to know how a random F-rank porter knows her sister's name. Tenma just shrugs and tells her it's because her sister is famous for being beautiful. It's a total deflect. Yuna turns bright red, completely flustered by the sudden and unexpected compliment. Tenma's mind is already on the next step. He knows Yuna has a spatial transfer skill that will be vital in the war against the demons. He pulls out his phone and asks for her number. Yuna is caught off guard by his bluntness. She stammers, heart racing as she wonders if there's a certain order to things like this. She thinks he's hitting on her. He quickly kills the vibe, telling her he needs a way for her to repay the debt for saving her life. She's immediately annoyed. Tenma's eyes sharpen as he recalls a critical moment from earlier that day. This is... The memory shifts back to the dungeon floor. Tenma is kneeling before a red quest window. This is bad, he thinks. The unnamed porter watches him from afar, confused by his weird behavior. Tenma starts grinning like a madman at the system rewards. The porter is genuinely disturbed, wondering if he's a necrophiliac. The system notification details a massive jump in the Awakening quest's difficulty, but with incredible rewards like trait evolution and a 000x EXP multiplier. Tenma realizes this isn't a normal trial. It's a limit break quest designed to push his growth past the normal F-rank cap. The rewards are insane. Higher skill caps, stat multipliers, and access to the mysterious shop of reverted causality. Tenma is thrilled. If he can pull this off and hit D rank, he'll be leagues ahead of everyone else. The objective appears: subjugate the demon. He has exactly 3 days before it manifests at a specific gate. He knows the enemy well, the demon of growth, a future Legion commander who will one day trample humanity. A small blue window suddenly pops up next to the main quest alert. What's this? Tenma wonders. The porter calls out to him, asking if he's ready to leave. Tenma tells him he's coming. The blue window reveals he's been granted a rare weapon box as a special bonus for the quest. He's shocked. A rare weapon at this early stage is a massive game changer. He reaches out and taps the icon, confirming the item redemption. A brilliant white light fills the dark cave as the weapon begins to materialize from the system. He reaches into the light and grips the hilt of a glowing, translucent blade. The manifest is complete. He now holds the Predator of Souls, a rare tier special sword. The scene shifts to the exterior of the dungeon gate. The hunters are finally stepping back into the light of the setting sun. The unnamed porter waves a cheerful goodbye to the guildmaster. For now, the day's work is done, and Tenma's real journey is just beginning. He hands the phone back over. The girl is absolutely fuming, clutching her phone while Tenma just watches, sweating. Tenma looks at his screen, a bit dazed by the intense encounter. She stomps off with her grocery basket, still burning with rage about being made a fool. The next day, Tenma's out by the bus stop with his new gear. He's carrying the Predator of Souls, a rare weapon that's way stronger than his old iron sword. It's got a super rare rank and a special effect that unlocks new functions as it absorbs souls. But just having a good blade won't be enough to take down the demon of growth. He needs to find a way to learn a much stronger swordsmanship skill. And that leads him straight to a local dojo. He stands at the entrance and gives the door a knock. It's already open, so he just peeks his head inside. To deal with the upcoming threat, he needs a main skill that can dish out massive damage. Rumor has it the man here is a master capable of splitting the sky with a single strike. He walks into the training hall, looking for the legendary figure. Kirishima Teiyo, the Sword Saint, a man who became a beacon of hope in the future. Up ahead, Teiyo is hunched over, scribbling something down intensely. Tenma slowly approaches, wondering if he's interrupting a secret technique. His heart's racing as he gets closer to the legendary hero. The lights hum above as he prepares to introduce himself. But instead of training, Teo is just sitting on the floor surrounded by signed papers. He lets out a big yawn, looking totally bored with his task. He looks up at Tenma and immediately assumes he's just another fan. Teo spins his pen with a cocky grin, asking where the guy wants his signature. In Tenma's memories, this guy was a god among men, standing tall against the sunset. His blade was a blur of pure destruction. They say he could literally split the heavens and cleave mountains in two. He was the pinnacle of skill, a man with no flaws in his technique. Back in reality, he's just laughing and offering autographs like a narcissistic idol. Even in the old stories, he was always bragging about how he was going to save the world. Tenma just stares, realizing the guy is actually way more annoying than the rumors suggested. It's a sharp contrast to the memory of the sword, Saint's mysterious death on a ruined battlefield. Teo snaps him out of it, asking if he wants the signature on his back or something. Tenma realizes he hasn't changed a bit since his younger days. He clears his throat and tells Teo he actually came here to be taught. Teo's eyes light up as he gets way too close, thrilled at the idea of finally having a disciple. They sit down to talk, though the floor is still a mess of autograph sheets. Teo admits he's been so obsessed with his own fame lately that he's let the place get like this. Then he gets curious, asking how Tenma even found him since he's never worked as a hunter. He leans in with a sudden, sharp intensity in his eyes. Tenma gulps, feeling the weight of the man's stare. Teo just gives him a knowing smirk. Teo laughs, assuming Tenma is just another fan who fell for his flashy technique during a recent assessment. Tenma just sighs as the man starts cracking up, completely unbothered by the mountain of autographs on his desk. He explains that he's a hunter too, and specifically wants Teo to teach him one of his skills. Teo's thrilled at the idea of a fan-turned-student and asks which technique he has his eye on. Tenma recalls a time he met a completely wasted Teo at a tavern in the past. Drunk Teo had claimed there was a simple technique that served as the starting point for everything. He had looked at Tenma with bleary eyes, questioning how anyone could not know the move he was talking about. It was called the straight-line slash. Teo is surprised Tenma traveled all this way just to learn such a basic move. He stands up and grabs a training sword from the wall rack. He tosses the wooden blade over, telling Tenma to give it a feel. Tenma catches it, his face neutral as he prepares to show what he can do. Teo immediately dismisses him, claiming Tenma has absolutely zero talent for the sword. He hasn't even swung the thing yet, but Teo insists he can tell everything he needs to know just by looking. Tenma argues that he can't possibly know for sure until he actually tries. Teo just lets out a tired sigh, clearly bored by the persistence. Tenma suddenly grips the sword with both hands, his focus sharpening. Teo's eyes widen as he senses a sudden change in the air. The system confirms that Tenma's level 10 swordsmanship has been activated, surrounding him in a powerful blue aura. Teo is stunned, muttering that it should be impossible for someone who looked so untalented a second ago. He had judged Tenma based on his posture and breathing, but the instant he gripped the blade, everything changed. Tenma just gives him a confident look, asking if he's still considered unqualified. Teo grows serious and tells him to follow him outside. They head to a training ground on a hill, with several thick wooden pillars standing in a row. Teo steps up first, promising to show him exactly how it's done. He mentions his own skill is still technically incomplete at level 9, but he'll make an exception for a fan. He takes a deep breath, his expression becoming cold and focused. He raises the wooden sword high above his head. In a blur of speed, he brings the blade down in a perfect singular motion. The pillar is split clean down the middle, the two halves falling away from each other. Teo steps back and tells Tenma it's his turn to give it a shot. Tenma takes his position, staring down the wooden target. He brings the sword down with a grunt, but it's not the clean cut he was hoping for. The impact was clumsy, sending a jolt through his body and making Tenma realize just how difficult this really was. Teo watches with a smirk, thinking Tenma really does have no knack for this specific move. Tenma keeps hacking away at the wood, but he's just bruising it instead of splitting it. Teo rubs his head, figuring it would take Tenma at least 10 years to master this technique at this rate. Tenma stops for a second, asking if there's any other way he can explain the feeling of the move. Teo thinks to himself that if Tenma weren't such a dedicated fan, he would have kicked him out ages ago. He tells him to imagine the tip of the sword reaching all the way to the heavens when he raises it. Then, when bringing it down, he should imagine it connecting heaven and earth in a perfectly straight line. Tenma listens intently, nodding as he tries to visualize the abstract concept. Tsukishiro Tenma brings the wooden sword down with all his might, his brow furrowed in concentration. Kirishima Teo watches from a distance, thinking the boy is completely hopeless. The wooden blade thuds against the pillar, failing to make a clean cut once again. Teo perks up, his ears twitching as he hears a subtle change in the rhythm of Tenma's swings. Suddenly, Tenma executes a strike so fast it leaves a shimmering blue trail in its wake. Teo stands frozen, his eyes wide with shock at the raw power he just witnessed. Tenma doesn't stop, his movements becoming increasingly fluid and precise with every passing second. Teo can hardly believe his eyes, muttering that it should be impossible for someone to improve this rapidly. With a deafening crack, Tenma's wooden sword bites deep into the thick wood of the training pillar. The pillar splits perfectly down the center, the two halves falling away with a heavy thud. Tenma stands tall, the training sword resting on his shoulder as he surveys his work. He turns back to the sword saint, asking if he's finally managed to grasp the technique. Teo laughs nervously, admitting he was wrong to doubt Tenma's potential. However, he points out that a true master must be able to cut through 4 pillars in a single, continuous motion. Elsewhere, a shy shurigane asks her older sister if she has ever heard of a hunter named Tsukishiro Tenma. Her sister, wearing a black top, crosses her arms and replies that the name doesn't ring a bell. Shurigane lets out a small, relieved sigh, a faint blush creeping onto her cheeks. She flops back onto her bed, clutching her smartphone close to her chest. She thought back to the grocery store where she met Tenma earlier that day, wondering if he'd asked for her number because he liked her. A shy smile plays on her lips as she recalls his intense gaze, thinking he was actually quite handsome. Her sister suddenly looms over her, asking with a playful smirk if she went out to meet a secret boyfriend. The girl screams in surprise, her heart racing as her sister teases her for being so easy to read. She buries her face in her pillow, her embarrassment reaching its peak as her sister continues to pry. She mumbles into the feathers, mentioning the person who stepped in to help her the other day. She quickly clarifies that he just asked for her phone number and nothing more happened. Her sister chuckles and gently pats her head, telling her to introduce the guy if things ever get serious. On a more serious note, her sister mentions she'll be away for a few days for a large-scale gate raid. She warns the girl to stay away from the dangerous front lines of the Hunter Association for the time being. Her sister waves goodbye and heads for the door, leaving the girl alone with her thoughts. Shurigane sits up and unlocks her phone, her eyes fixed on the new contact entry. The screen displays the name Tsukishiro next to a phone number, making her heart skip a beat. Back at the training grounds, Tenma stands before 4 pillars that have all been sliced clean through. Blue system windows pop up, announcing that he has successfully acquired the rare single-stroke slash skill at level 10. Tenma lets out a long, satisfied breath, marveling at how quickly his experience multiplier helped him master the move. He turns to Teo and offers a polite bow, thanking the man for his invaluable guidance. To his surprise, he finds the legendary sword Saint prostrate on the ground in a deep bow. Teo crawls forward and grabs Tenma by the leg, his usual cool demeanor completely shattered. With tears in his eyes, Teo begs Tenma to show him the technique one more time, realizing the boy has surpassed even his own level. Tenma looks down in awkward confusion, wondering if he really just outclassed the man who invented the skill. A detailed skill window appears, describing the Kirishima-style single-stroke slash and its ability to sever even non-physical entities at level 10. Tenma realizes he only has 1 day left before his growth history becomes public knowledge. He decides to make the most of his remaining time by learning as many powerful swordsmanship skills as he can. Teo leans in close, his face distorted with emotion as he begs Tenma to show him the technique again. Tenma agrees to show him, but on one condition: Teo must teach him more of his advanced skills in return. Tenma formally introduces himself, extending a hand to the man who was just his teacher. Tears well up in Teo's eyes, deeply touched by Tenma's words and talent. Overcome with excitement, Teo lunges forward and pulls Tenma into a crushing bear hug, shouting "Master" at the top of his lungs. He declares with a broad, toothy grin that from this day forward, Tenma is his new master. Tenma struggles to breathe in the man's grip, weakly telling him to let go while Teo vows to share every secret of his style. Teo immediately jumps into action, performing a series of high-level maneuvers that fill the training ground with energy. He announces the Kirishima-style 121st form, his body becoming a blur as he strikes the air with incredible speed. With a fierce expression, Teo unleashes the explosive Usura slash, a move that radiates intense heat and power. A massive pillar of fire and smoke erupts where his blade struck, shaking the very foundation of the training area. The explosion continues to expand, showering the area in debris as Teo finishes his devastating demonstration. Teo stands calmly amidst the settling dust, sheathing his sword and asking his new master if he managed to follow the movements. Tenma hunches over, gasping for air and dripping with sweat, his face shadowed with a sense of utter defeat. He realizes that his earlier success with the single-stroke slash was likely a fluke compared to these complex techniques. He admits to himself that he can't even begin to grasp the theory behind Teo's more advanced forms, let alone imitate them. Despite his massive experience multiplier, Tenma is reminded of the harsh reality that he lacks innate talent for swordsmanship. A system message flashes before him as his natural recovery skill kicks in, bathing his body in a soothing green light. Teo notices Tenma's fatigue and suggests they call it a day, much to Tenma's surprise. Tenma manages a weary smile, agreeing that he has other pressing matters to attend to for his growth quest. Teo looks off into the distance, acknowledging that he still has a long road ahead of him despite his own legendary status. He explains that while he had a license, he never truly cared for the hunter life until he witnessed Tenma's miraculous progress. Fired up with a newfound passion, Teo vows to become a hunter worthy of his master's training, while Tenma encourages him with a tired smile. Tenma heads over to a shop at sunset to offload some loot. He lays out a perfectly preserved wolf hide and high-quality fangs for appraisal. The shopkeeper is stunned, asking if he picked up a butchering skill because the quality is unreal. He explains that materials this good grant massive bonus effects during the crafting process. The old man pats him on the shoulder, promising to pay extra if he keeps bringing in stuff like this. Tenma checks his new gear, a basic set of F-rank leather armor he bought with the profit. It's just starter gear, but he knows even a tiny defense boost makes a huge difference. With that settled, he pulls out his phone to handle one last thing. Across town, a cell phone starts buzzing on a nightstand. A woman's hand reaches out to grab it. Shurigane Yuna sits up in bed, wearing a face mask and looking completely startled. Tenma tells her he has something to say, catching her off guard. She tries to act cool, claiming she's busy even though she's clearly just relaxing. She considers playing hard to get for a moment to keep him on his toes. Then Tenma mentions he has information about an anomalous gate. Her heart immediately sinks as she realizes how serious this is. The face mask starts peeling off as she freezes in shock. She loses all her composure and shouts into the phone, demanding to know what he just said. A quest notification appears for Tenma. He has to subdue a demon to break his level limit. He stands by his balcony at night, looking down at his new blade. He's prepared for the upcoming battle. The next day, a small group of hunters stands before a swirling purple portal in the woods. Tenma arrives at the plaza, apologizing to Yuna for being late. She asks if his information is actually reliable, and he tells her she'll see once they get there. She sighs, explaining they're heading to a D-rank gate with the Roman Guild today. She looks a bit apprehensive about the whole thing. Tenma just hums in response, looking thoughtful. She tells him to quit dawdling and hurry up. They run over to catch up with the Roman Guild members waiting by the gate. The guild's leaders, Mai Yumasaki and Taiga Sejima, are already waiting at the front. Yuna introduces herself as being from the association, and Mai offers a polite greeting. Mai looks at Tenma and asks who the guy standing next to her is. Taiga Sejima cuts in, identifying himself as the guildmaster with an arrogant tone. He makes it clear that they're doing the heavy lifting and warns Tenma not to interfere with their hunt. Tenma simply agrees, ignoring the guy's attitude. He knows that normally, a group like this wouldn't stand a chance against a real demon. Taiga catches him starring and asks if he has something to say. Tenma just looks away and stays quiet. The guildmaster tells them to just follow quietly and starts walking toward the gate. Yuna whispers to Tenma that she hates guilds because they treat the association like an enemy. The team starts disappearing into the swirling purple energy of the gate. Before they enter, Yuna stops Tenma so she can measure the gate's energy one last time. Yuna concentrates, focusing her magic into a bright pink sphere to scan the entrance. She expands the energy field to get a reading on the entire area as Tenma watches. She narrows her eyes, looking for any hidden traps or unusual readings within the gate. Finding nothing suspicious, she asks Tenma if he's absolutely sure his information is correct. Tenma just gives her a confident smirk and says she'll find out soon enough. She remains quiet, still skeptical but curious about why he's so certain. Thinking he's an interesting guy, Yuna decides to trust his intuition for now. They step inside to find a stunning moonlit forest reflecting off a calm lake. Yuna is captivated by how pretty the scenery is, but Tenma isn't there for the view. He grips his sword, knowing the boss is lurking somewhere in this forest. His senses are on high alert, confirming that a demon of growth is definitely nearby. A little further ahead, the Roman Guild continues their trek through the glowing woods. Taiga Sejima looks back, telling the others not to wander off and keep close. He sounds annoyed, warning them that any accidents will be their own problem. Yuna forces a smile, internally laughing at a D-rank hunter trying to boss around a C-rank like her. The guild members keep laughing, clearly overconfident in their abilities. Tenma watches them, thinking about how this stage of early growth is usually a hunter's happiest time. He knows that hunters who jump from F to D often start thinking they're untouchable. To them, the climb to the top looks like a simple set of stairs. But Tenma understands that reaching S rank requires being a complete anomaly. Suddenly, the system warns him of a magical beast appearing right ahead. A pack of massive silver wolves lunges out of the shadows with a terrifying howl. Taiga draws his twin swords, identifying 3 of the beasts and ordering the team to engage. The rest of the guild prepares their weapons as the wolves close the distance. Mai Yumasaki raises her staff high, chanting a shield spell to protect the group. A golden barrier snaps into place, catching a wolf midair as it tries to bite. The guild's mage hovers above, summoning hundreds of magic arrows into the air. Taiga prepares his strike, a massive spectral wolf aura surging behind him. The mage lets the arrows fly, raining magical energy down on their targets. The projectiles connect, creating a series of blinding explosions against the pack. One of the wolves is sent tumbling back, yelping as the magic takes its toll. The guild members don't waste a second, charging in to finish the job. They deliver a series of heavy slashes, carving into the beast as it struggles to recover. Tenma watches the fight unfold, thinking their coordination is actually pretty solid for a normal dungeon. But Taiga's expression shifts as he realizes something is very wrong. Tenma sees the problem immediately. The demonic pressure is already starting to mutate the wolves. One of the wolves stands up, its body glowing with a dark, sinister energy as it doubles in size. Taiga grits his teeth, realizing the situation is spiraling out of control. He shouts for everyone to retreat back inside the shield as the mutated beasts charge. He's shocked to see that even though they hit its vitals, the monster is still standing. Taiga is forced onto his heels, barely holding his own against the beast's overwhelming power. Mai desperately fires more magic, trying to keep the team from being overrun. The guild's magic arrows slam into the silver wolf, but the impact is far less effective than they expected. The guild's mage is stunned, shouting in disbelief that her magic isn't even reaching the beasts anymore. With a thunderous crack, the lead wolf's claws shatter the golden protective shield like fragile glass. The creature roars directly into Taiga Seijima's face as the remnants of the barrier dissipate into the air. Taiga is forced to leap back, desperately trying to maintain his footing as the monster crashes through their formation. Another hunter swings his heavy blade, but the mutated wolf is far too fast, leaping clear of the heavy strike. Mai Yumisaki collapses to the ground, crying out in terror as a massive, glowing wolf looms over her. Taiga shouts for his team to stay calm and keep fighting, but panic is already setting in. Tenma stands there, deducing how the demonic pressure from a demon spreads throughout the entire gate. Monsters that absorb this pressure transform, gaining a level of strength that far surpasses their natural state. Tenma observes the chaos, nodding that this phenomenon is exactly why demons are such terrifying entities. One of the wolves, now engulfed in a dark, swirling aura, lunges at a guild member with newfound ferocity. Yuna turns to Tenma, worried that the guild is outmatched and asking if they should step in to help. Tenma activates his perception skill, realizing that they might not even have the luxury of helping others. They are suddenly encased in a shimmering magical dome as the forest air begins to crackle with energy. From the deep shadows, a massive white wolf charges directly toward their position at high speed. A whole pack of mutated silver wolves surrounds them, their snarling barks echoing through the trees. Tenma remains calm, drawing his sword to face the first beast that lunges at him. He tightens his grip on the hilt, ready to test the power of his newly acquired rare weapon. He slices through a wolf in one fluid motion, but a system alert reminds him that his level is currently locked. A slight smile plays on Tenma's lips. The Predator of Soul's sword is even sharper than he expected. 3 wolves surround him at once, but Tenma doesn't show a hint of fear as he prepares to strike again. He lets out a battle cry as he launches himself forward, determined to end the fight quickly. Suddenly, a series of glowing orange magical chains whip through the air from behind him. The chains wrap tightly around the 3 wolves, binding them securely and stopping their attack in its tracks. Glowing orange chains bind a massive white wolf as Tenma approaches with his sword drawn. Shurigane maintains her binding magic, shouting for Tenma to finish the monster off quickly. Tenma nods, mentally nodding that the sister of an SSS rank hunter definitely has the skills to back up her reputation. He steps forward and unleashes a massive crescent of blue energy. The strike connects with a flash of light, cutting straight through the beast's defenses. The wolf is shredded into bloody chunks, leaving Tenma and Shurigane standing over the remains. Shurigane stares at the carnage, clearly impressed by the sheer power of the slash. Wisps of dark essence start to rise from the wolf's carcass. The energy is drawn into Tenma's blade, the Predator of Souls fueling its power. A system window confirms the successful ingestion, bringing the sword's soul concentration to 13%. Shurigane turns her attention back to the rest of the party further in the woods. Further off, the other hunters are having a much harder time dealing with the wolf pack. Seijima is struggling against a wolf, screaming for the others to hurry up and help him out. Tenma just stands there with his arms crossed, reminding the guy about his earlier order not to interfere with the hunt. The guild leader is fuming, unable to believe someone would throw his own words back in his face during a fight. He barely manages to grunt in frustration as the pressure of the battle builds. The skirmish eventually settles down, and Tenma asks Shurigane if they should actually step in. As the group catches their breath, Seijima tries to regain some dignity by calling for a short break. His guildmates are clearly rattled, wondering if pushing further into the dungeon is actually a good idea. Maya's visibly shivering as she asks if he's really serious about continuing after that close call. Sejima snaps at her, refusing to let a measly D-rank gate bruise his ego. He reminds everyone that they're broke and need the loot from this raid to pay off their gear debts. A narration box notes how hunters often get desensitized to danger as a massive, multi-eyed face manifests in the shadows. Sejima sits on a carcass and eats, completely unaware of the demonic presence looming right behind him. Shurigane speaks up again, warning the group that they've stumbled into an anomalous gate. She insists they head back and call for association support, but the hunters aren't having it. Sejima demands proof of her claims, looking for any excuse to keep his payday. He looms over her, telling her not to overstep her bounds just because she's with the association. Shurigane stays silent, narrowing her eyes as she realizes he won't listen to reason. Sejima continues his power trip, ignoring the growing unease in the air. Suddenly, one of the hunters' eyes widen with pure terror. Mai stammers out Sejima's name, her voice trembling. She points a shaking finger toward something in the dark woods ahead. Two glowing red eyes peer out from the darkness, radiating a heavy pressure. A massive white paw slams into the dirt, cracking the ground. The giant silver wolf boss emerges, looming over the entire party. It lets out a deafening roar that shakes the very air around them. The shockwave from the roar sends the hunters tumbling backward in a panic. Sejima hits the ground hard, his arrogance completely replaced by a look of sheer terror. Unlike the others, Tenma holds his ground, already analyzing the new threat. The boss of the gate stares them down, its presence suffocating. A system alert pops up as the wolf lets out another howl, signaling the real battle has begun. The system sounds a loud warning. Everyone has fallen into a state of fear thanks to the silver wolf boss's deafening roar. Sejima is the first to break, clutching his head in agony as he screams that his brain is splitting open. Tenma tries to fight through the mental static, yelling for Shurigane to use her escape magic while they still can. Shurigane is barely holding on herself, her face contorted in pain as she warns that she's reaching her limit. The sheer pressure triggers Tenma's rapid growth, and he instantly acquires the mentality skill, which levels up 3 times in a single heartbeat. With his resistance to mental status ailments skyrocketing, the fog in his mind finally begins to clear. His eyes sharpen as his mentality stat continues to climb, and he regains full control over his body. Sejima is still a mess, whimpering that they need to run for their lives. In his blind panic, the guild leader kicks Mai's hand away as he tries to scramble to safety. He abandons his own teammate on the ground, begging for his life while he retreats. He doesn't even look back as he leaves her behind, his only thought being his own survival. Tenma watches the coward bolt, realizing that if they split up now, they'll all be slaughtered before the escape magic can trigger. He knows he has to stop the guy before he ruins their only chance at getting everyone out alive. Tenma activates his intimidation skill, his eye glowing with a predatory red light as the level jumps to 7. A massive, spectral eye looms over Sejima, pinning him down with a crushing weight of pure killing intent. The guild leader slams into the dirt with a gasp, completely paralyzed by the sheer pressure coming from Tenma. With the group stationary, Shurigane manages to drop to her knees and activate a massive spatial transfer magic circle. But they aren't out of the woods yet. The silver wolf boss is already mid-lunge, its eyes glowing with malice. Tenma calls out to Shurigane, telling her to hold on while he rushes over to catch Sejima as the monster closes in. The wolf opens its massive maw, casting a shadow of death over the entire party. Just as the teleportation triggers, Tenma steps forward into the center of the array. A massive impact ripples through the air as the wolf's head is violently repelled by the magic. The group reappears elsewhere, collapsed on the ground and gasping for air while the wolf's howl echoes in the distance. Mai and Sejima lie in the dirt, sobbing with relief that they somehow managed to survive that nightmare. One of the hunters struggles to his feet, urging everyone to get to the exit before the boss catches up. Shurigane looks around in confusion, realizing that the teleportation didn't take them as far as it should have. She looks back toward the tree line, her voice trembling as she announces that the gate's exit has been completely sealed. Tenma steps forward, explaining that they're trapped in an anomalous gate where the only way out is through the boss's corpse. Sejima collapses to his knees again, completely broken as he asks how they're supposed to kill a monster that strong. Ignoring the coward, Tenma draws his sword, the blade glowing with a cold, blue energy. Sejima screams in surprise as a violent tremor shakes the ground beneath them. He unleashes a devastating slash that cleaves through a charging silver wolf. Tenma tells them to stay back and not to worry. He's the one who's going to handle this. He stands tall in front of the cowering guild leader, his resolve unshakable. Mai points toward the forest, her voice cracking as she asks what that horrific thing is. The black essence is completely consuming the silver wolf, molding its body into something far more sinister. The creature lets out a guttural growl as the transformation takes hold, its body swelling with demonic power. A blood-curdling screech echoes through the forest as the hijacking of the boss's body is finalized. Tenma watches the spectacle with a grim expression, realizing the silver wolf boss was just a vessel for something much worse. He confirms to himself that this is the real target, the one he's been waiting for. The entity fully manifests as the demon of growth, a twisted bipedal wolfman dripping with corruption. Shurigane stares at Tenma in disbelief, asking if he's actually insane enough to go after a monster like that alone. Tenma calmly announces that he and Shurigane will be the ones to defeat the beast. The other hunters are appalled, calling the plan an act of suicide. Tenma turns his attention to the cowering Sejima. He asks to borrow Sejima's B-rank metal armor set to prepare for the fight. As they advance, Tenma asks Shurigane if she has any strategy in mind. Tenma admits he simply plans to overpower the creature with brute force. Shurigane sarcastically dismisses his brilliant plan as a death wish. Tenma notes the boss's power surge is directly tied to the gate's closure. A pack of snarling silver wolves lunges at Tenma from the shadows. Tenma readies his blade, intent on smashing the minions to pieces. A single blue energy slash cleaves through the charging wolves. More wolves turn their aggression towards Shurigane. Shurigane counters with a massive discharge of electricity. Bolts of lightning strike the wolves, incinerating them instantly. A huge explosion of magical energy clears the path. Tenma is impressed by her display of power. She winks, reminding him she's nearly a B-rank hunter. Tenma thinks her help is vital for wiping out the minions quickly. System alerts confirm the Predator of Souls has reached 100% soul concentration. Tenma's sword erupts with a brilliant, swirling blue light. The system announces the activation of the Soul Release special function. Soul Release drastically boosts the sword's power and range for 5 seconds. Tenma knows he only has a short window to make his move. Shurigane feels a sudden, dangerous pressure coming from Tenma's aura. The demon of growth howls from a cliff, wreathed in dark energy. Tenma and Shurigane look toward the source of the terrifying sound. The demon's presence causes even the other wolves to tremble in fear. Tenma notes the wolves are wary because of the change in their leader. He decides to strike before the demon fully integrates with the wolf's body. Shurigane demands an explanation for this walking natural disaster. Tenma explains that the boss has been hijacked by a demon of growth. Shurigane asks about the origin of this demonic power. Red System windows warn that they've entered a demonic domain. A restriction prevents any living creature within 50 meters from growing or gaining power. Shurigane is puzzled by the strange red alerts. Tenma recognizes the restriction from his previous life's memories. He explains that the demon race inherently commands and manipulates energy. Each demon possesses a domain that exerts control over its surroundings. The influence of these domains is absolute for those caught within. The demon of growth specifically blocks all ability to strengthen or level up. Nearby hunters are left helpless as their spells and weapons fail to activate. Tenma realizes the situation will only get worse if the domain expands. Shurigane senses the shift in the battlefield, muttering that the situation has taken a turn for the worse. Shurigane realizes the demon of growth has spotted them as it stands poised atop a high cliff. The demon lunges from its perch, its wolf-like form descending with a predatory roar. A violent impact shatters the terrain, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. Tenma and Shurigane are nearly blown off their feet by the massive shockwave of the attack. As the smoke clears, the demon reveals a new form, a mysterious girl with elf ears and a cold, purple aura. Shurigane is bewildered by the transformation, but Tenma explains it is a shape the creature absorbed in the past. The elf-like manifestation hovers above the crater, radiating a powerful and alien magical energy. The figure raises a hand, gathering swirling purple energy that begins to pulsate with power. A massive array of glowing purple spheres materializes behind the girl, preparing to fire. Tenma and Shurigane look on in alarm at the sheer scale of the incoming magic. Tenma realizes that this formidable skill was never recorded in any known data about the demon of growth. He concludes that the monster must have stolen this ability from an elf preyed upon long ago. Sensing imminent danger, Tenma urgently tells Shurigane they need to retreat. He instructs her to stay alert and wait for his specific signal to dodge the barrage. The system announces the activation of Perception Level 10, sharpening Tenma's focus. The elf girl stands at the center of the gathering storm, her eyes glowing with a sinister light. Intense magical currents surge as the purple orbs reach their peak energy levels. She directs the spheres with a flick of her wrist, unleashing a multi-directional bombardment. Tenma shouts at the exact moment the energy is released, warning Shurigane to move. Columns of purple destruction rain down on the battlefield, incinerating the earth. The massive magical beams crisscross the ground as Tenma and Shurigane narrowly evade the blasts. Tenma slides across the smoking ruins, maintaining his momentum to avoid the follow-up fire. The system confirms the activation of Agility Level 10, giving Tenma the speed necessary to survive the onslaught. Tenma's footwork skill kicks in, leaving a trail of dust as he repositions. Martial arts mastery activates next, his body moving on instinct to avoid the incoming blast. He barely clears the impact zone, the dark energy erupting right behind him. He's breathing hard, realizing he had to chain 4 different skills just to survive that one dodge. Steam rises from the borrowed armor as he drops to one knee. If he wasn't wearing this B-rank gear, he'd be dead already. He grits his teeth. He can't keep playing defense. He needs to land a hit before the next barrage starts. The demon, currently in the form of a silver-haired elf, hovers in the air while spinning a sphere of dark energy. Tenma ignores the pressure and launches himself forward, closing the distance. The elf demon conjures a massive purple orb, ready to finish him off. He shouts out to his teammate, he can't do this alone. Glowing chains suddenly burst from the ground, lashing toward the target. The binding magic wraps around the demon's limbs, pinning her midair. Shurigane strains to hold the spell, screaming for him to take the shot. This is the opening he needs. Tenma kicks off the ground with everything he's got. He raises his blade, channeling the Kirishima style he just mastered. He pours his focus into a single-stroke slash, the blade erupting in a pillar of blue light. The strike connects, carving a clean line through the center of the elf's form. Tenma lands in a crouch, looking back to see if the fight is over. A low growl vibrates through the ground, and he realizes he's far from done. The shadow expands as the demon sheds its elf form, growing into a massive, muscular silver wolf. Tenma wipes the sweat from his face, trying to catch his breath. It's a smart play. The demon switched to its larger wolf form at the last second to soak up most of the damage from his slash. With a single stomp, the beast shatters the magic chains holding it down. Shurigane watches in horror, shouting a warning as the monster pivots toward him. The wolf opens its maw, a sphere of dark energy condensing between its fangs. Tenma's eyes widen. This isn't just a physical beast anymore. A thick beam of purple energy erupts from the wolf's mouth. The ground explodes as multiple beams rain down, turning the forest floor into a crater. He's forced to keep moving. The thing is mixing high-level elf magic with its own overwhelming strength. A purple glow washes over him as he looks up, the pressure becoming unbearable. Another blast slams into the earth right behind him, sending debris flying. He's reaching his limit, his muscles screaming from the constant strain of dodging. Shuriken prepares another magic circle, her expression tense as she tries to find a way to help. Tenma finds a second wind and charges back in, staying low to the ground. He leaps into the air, a silver blur against the dark sky. He brings his sword down in another single-stroke slash, aiming right for the wolf's chest. With a savage howl, the beast strikes back, knocking Tenma flying. Tenma's body slams into the ground, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Tenma is thrown back, skidding across the dirt with steam pouring off his overheated armor. High above, the demon immediately follows up by firing more black orbs toward the protagonist. He barely has time to react before the entire sky seems to fall on him. A dozen beams of dark light hammer into the ground, completely swallowing his position in a wall of purple fire. Tenma grits his teeth, realizing that dragging this out will only lead to their defeat. He needs a way to end this quickly. Explosions rock the forest as he looks around, trying to locate Shuriken in the chaos. She's clearly hitting her limit, her mana reserves nearly drained after holding back the monster's onslaught. Tenma sees her struggling and knows he has to make a move before she collapses completely. The black ichor of the demon sizzles on the ground, the severed pieces of its flesh failing to reconnect to the main body. It's a good sign. His attacks are finally starting to stick, proving the beast isn't as invincible as it looks. He leans forward and sprints, aiming to land one final, decisive strike. The massive demon of growth looms over him, its shadow covering the entire crater as he closes in. A massive blast of blue energy carves through the beast, making it howl in agony. The monster slams its paws down, but Tenma is already moving, weaving through the falling debris. He knows he only has one shot at this, preparing his most powerful technique. He activates the Predator of Soul's special ability, Soul Release, surrounding his blade in a swirling aura of blue energy. The system warns him he only has 5 seconds to use this enhanced power before the sword goes dormant as the wolf charges another blast. He shouts out to Shuriken, signaling that it's time for their final gambit. He grabs her and lunges through a cloud of dust as another explosion shatters the earth behind them. She lets out a yelp of surprise, barely keeping her grip as he hauls her out of the line of fire. Tenma tells her his plan. They need to get directly above the demon's head to maximize the impact. She looks at him like he's lost it, warning him that she only has enough mana left for one more spatial transfer. A dark shockwave rips through the clearing, nearly knocking them both off their feet. Despite her doubts, she puts her hands together and begins casting, calling him a lunatic for even suggesting this. The sky turns a deep purple as the magical energy for the transfer begins to condense around them. A massive burst of power erupts, sealing their fate as the spell finishes. High above the battlefield, the air shatters like glass, opening a rift in the dark sky. Tenma and Shuriken plummet from the portal, hurtling toward the demon waiting below. Shuriken screams as gravity takes hold, the wind whipping past them at terminal velocity. Tenma doesn't flinch, activating the soul release mid-fall as his sword ignites with a violent blue flame. The blade's reach extends drastically, turning the sword into a massive pillar of soul energy. He channels every bit of power he has left into the strike, the image of a master swordsman flickering behind him. The wolf demon looks up and charges one final orb of destruction in its mouth, desperate to counter the falling threat. Tenma unleashes his massive single-stroke slash, a vertical line of light that cuts through the very air. The impact is like a comet hitting the earth, the blue energy drowning out everything else. A titanic pillar of light erupts from the ground, incinerating the demon as the battle reaches its explosive conclusion. A blinding flash signals the end of the fight. The demon is finally dead. Dark energy scatters into the air as the monster's form dissolves. Shuriken lies on the scorched earth, gasping for breath. She stares up at the sky, wondering just who this guy really is. Tenma is passed out beside her, completely exhausted from the final strike. A system message pops up. He's officially cleared the quest and hit D rank. Tenma can't help but smile, thinking about how he never reached this rank in his past life. Shurigane tells him to get moving, but he admits he can't even move a muscle. She looks back with a grim expression. Staying still isn't an option. A pack of silver wolves emerges from the shadows, eyes glowing red. The monsters growl, ready to finish off the weakened hunters. Tenma just grins and asks her to buy him 5 more minutes. Shurigane downs an intermediate mana potion. She's back in fighting shape and demands the most expensive dinner possible as payment. Tenma tells her 1 minute is plenty. A massive explosion of light erupts as she unleashes her power. The young hunter watches the spectacle from the ground. The sheer force of the attack clears out the entire forest. The sun sets over the city as the notification confirms the gate is successfully cleared. The blonde mage girl throws her arms up in celebration. The survivors regroup as Shurigane helps Tenma walk, reminding him not to forget about that dinner. He realizes she just took out 50 wolves all by herself. He tells her he's fine now and lets go of her shoulder. Nearby, Seijima's armor lies in pieces on the grass. Seijima is heartbroken over his gear, while the blonde girl thanks them for saving her life. Shurigane tells her the Hunter Association will be in touch and asks for her silence on what happened. The girl nods and asks Tenma for his name. He keeps it simple and gives her a fake one, Goriki Takaru. She bows politely to the man she knows as Goriki, while Shurigane shoots him a suspicious look. She whispers to him, asking if he's some kind of wanted criminal. Tenma isn't exactly thrilled about hiding his identity. He knows that if a major guild saw his potential, he'd be an instant star. But growing too fast is dangerous. The demons would put him on a hit list immediately. Being hunted by them before he's ready would mean game over. He needs to stay under the radar until he's strong enough to protect himself. Shurigane asks if he's really telling her to fudge the official report. She lets out a long sigh, figuring it's okay since he prevented a total disaster. He just smiles and says he'd appreciate the help. A blush creeps across her face as she tries to play it cool. She starts walking away, telling him to call her later for that free meal. Tenma watches her go for a second. Then he calls out to her one last time. Shurigane looks back, wondering what he wants now. Tenma asks her for a quick ride to Yongsan, since his clothes are a mess. She stares at him, clearly not thrilled about being his personal taxi. But she does it anyway, warping him away in a burst of blue light. The next morning arrives at a quiet apartment complex. Tenma wakes up feeling better than ever, thanks to his recovery skill hitting level 10. He can't help but chuckle at how much of a cheat this experience multiplier is. Just 1 night of sleep gave him a massive boost in skill experience. He remembers his new D-rank status and the demon he put down, realizing his skills are breaking past their limits. It's a whole new world when your talents are adjusted like this. His phone starts buzzing on the bed. He checks it and sees 4 missed calls from Gondo Hiroki, his old boss. Tenma smirks at the phone. The days of him taking orders for scraps are officially over. He opens his system menu to check his loot. He pulls out a high-purity mana crystal that's glowing with energy. It's a D-rank item, but the quality is high enough to fetch 500,000 yen. Clearing the last gate unlocked a new feature called the Causality Reversal Shop. Tenma realizes this isn't just some regular gear store. The menu looks like something out of a high-end RPG, with items bought using points. For now, only the Consumables tab is available. He spots a treasure acquisition potion on the list and gets curious. The system hasn't let him down yet, so he trusts it's worth the price. He drops 500 points to buy the strange concoction. A glowing blue bottle manifests right in front of him. He knows that in this world, money is just as important as a sharp blade. Without hesitating, he downs the entire thing in one go. At first, he feels absolutely nothing. Then, a floating blue flame with a yen symbol appears out of thin air. Tenma stares at it, surprised by the literal guiding light. The flame zips over to his phone on the bed. It hovers there, vibrating with energy. It's pointing straight at the missed call notification from his former employer. He figures he might as well see what the boss wants. Gondo picks up and immediately starts screaming, ordering him to the office this second. Tenma just grins. He's starting to see exactly where this treasure is hiding. He heads out, following the blue light to a building down the street. He tells the yelling man on the phone to stay right where he is. Tenma arrives at Daiichi Printing, the place where he spent his days as a low-level lackey. The guiding flame zips down the hallway, leading him deeper inside. It stops right in front of the office door. He finds it hard to believe there's anything valuable in a dump like this. He pushes the door open just as a glass comes flying toward him, with Gondo screaming insults at his arrival. Inside the office, Gondo Hiroki is livid, screaming at Tenma for ignoring his calls and costing him a huge contract. He orders his 2 goons to teach Tenma a lesson, claiming it's been a while since his last beating. Tenma remains calm, noting that Gondo is just an ordinary civilian who only could push him around because he was the weakest F rank. Tenma activates his memory search skill to recall the many times these men have tormented him. He identifies the 2 thugs, Kaido Masato and Kumagawa Teiji, both D-rank hunters who acted as Gondo's muscle. Tenma reflects on the countless beatings he's endured at their hands in the past. Kaido Masato sneers at Tenma, asking if he's lost his mind to be glaring at them like that. Gondo shouts from behind his desk, telling his men to teach Tenma some manners. One of the thugs grabs Tenma by the collar, still thinking he's the same weakling he's always been. Tenma stares back coldly, knowing that even among D-rank hunters, he's in a completely different league now. He recognizes that hunters stuck at the lower end of D-rank only have standard skills at level 5 at best. Tenma activates his level 10 strength skill and easily catches the thug's hand. With a casual movement, Tenma flings the large man across the room. Kumagawa Teiji crashes through a massive bookcase, books flying everywhere. Gondo and Kaido watch in stunned silence, their jaws dropping at Tenma's sudden display of power. Kaido charges forward with a roar, throwing a heavy punch. Tenma's perception skill activates, making the incoming attack look like it's moving in slow motion. Using his level 10 martial arts skill, Tenma delivers a devastating counterstrike. The second thug is sent skidding across the floor, completely incapacitated. Gondo screams in panic, demanding that his men get up and do their jobs properly. Kumagawa Teiji stands back up, his shirt torn as his muscles bulge with unnatural force. He activates full-body strength amplification, his eyes glowing red with rage. He lunges at Tenma, putting everything he has into one final desperate charge. Tenma doesn't even flinch, meeting the brute's fist with a punch of his own. The sheer force of Tenma's blow sends the massive hunter flying through the air once more. Kumagawa Teiji slams into Gondo, sending both of them tumbling into the wreckage of the office. Gondo groans in pain as he lies buried under his own muscle-bound subordinate. Tenma walks over and looms over the trembling manager, his expression cold and unforgiving. Gondo tries to threaten him, shouting that Tenma's career as a hunter is over for attacking him. Tenma just smirks, unimpressed by the empty threats of a man who has lost everything. Seeing the look in Tenma's eyes, the 3 of them immediately drop to their knees, begging for forgiveness. Tenma points out that taking a taxi fare out of his daily pay was going too far, and Gondo quickly agrees to pay for everything. Tenma looks at the pathetic man, doubting he'll actually cough up any real money. The blue guiding flame suddenly moves toward a large bookcase against the wall. Tenma pushes some books aside, revealing a hidden compartment. The flame hovers excitedly over a high-tech electronic safe hidden behind the books. Tenma points at the safe and asks if this is the one the flame was leading him to. Gondo pales even further, stammering and asking what Tenma is doing. Gondo tries to regain some confidence, claiming that no skill can open a safe with a 20-digit multi-layer passcode. The blue flame suddenly expands, its light wrapping around the electronic keypad. The passcode display blurs with rapid movement, as every single layer is unlocked by the system's power. Tenma reaches out to the now open safe, wondering what kind of treasure Gondo was hiding. Tenma reaches into the safe, as the blue system energy crackles around his fingertips. Inside, he finds a stack of documents and a glowing blue mana crystal that pulses with energy. Gondo, still on his knees, looks up in absolute disbelief, unable to fathom how Tenma opened his most secure safe. Tenma pulls out a thick folder, identifying it as a ledger containing records of Gondo's various illicit gains. He also pulls out a beautiful ornate key with a blue mana crystal embedded in its head, which the system identifies as a key that can open C-rank boxes or lower. Tenma realizes that just selling the key alone would net him at least 1,000,000 yen, though he starts to wonder if this is technically robbery. Suddenly, something else in the safe catches his eye as the blue system energy begins to glow even brighter. He finds a Yokohama dungeon investigation report detailing an unregistered D-rank dungeon that is being kept confidential by a private client. Tenma realizes that this is the dungeon he's been looking for, and that clearing it could make him a fortune. Gondo tries to plead with him, explaining that he spent a fortune preparing to clear that dungeon, and that a D-rank hunter can't even get past the entrance. Tenma smiles confidently, telling the desperate manager that he'll be the one to judge whether or not he can enter. The office door suddenly swings open as someone else arrives on the scene, catching everyone's attention. A tall man in a long white coat enters, looking around at the mess and nodding that someone seems to have beaten him there. Tenma recognizes the man immediately, surprised to see such a high-profile figure in a place like this. Sengoku Kyosuke, a man whose name was known by everyone in the ruined world of the future, walks deeper into the room. Tenma watches him closely, his mind racing as he tries to figure out why the legendary figure is here. Sengoku Kyosuke smiles and reveals that he knows exactly who Tenma is, the talentless F-rank hunter. He adds that Tenma is also known by another nickname in these parts, the fill-in. Sengoku Kyosuke looks over at the open safe, noticing the blue system energy that is still lingering there. Tenma holds up the dungeon report, asking if this is what the man is looking for. Sengoku takes the report and looks it over, his expression unreadable behind his glasses. Gondo suddenly lunges forward, screaming that they can have anything but that specific report. Without even looking, Sengoku delivers a sharp backhand that sends the manager spinning away. Gondo slams into the floor once again, completely silenced by the overwhelming presence of the new arrival. Sengoku Kyosuke flips through the stolen ledger, asking why someone would lie about having it. He looks over at Tsukishiro Tenma, thanking him for the help and mentioning he'd like to repay the favor later. He casually holds out a business card and tells Tenma to give him a call in a week. Tenma takes it, staring at the name in total shock. This guy is a literal legend. In the future timeline, Sengoku was an S-rank hunter and the head of a massive intelligence network who predicted the demon invasion. The man known as both a hero and a monster starts heading for the door. He walks out with a calm, steady stride. Tenma watches him go, thinking he's absolutely fascinating. As he walks away, Sengoku muses to himself about how Tenma actually managed to pull one over on him. He's genuinely impressed by the kid. Even an information broker of his caliber was completely fooled. He realizes Tenma is the one who actually handled the Night Crow incident, despite the official cover-up. A memory of the massive power displayed during the gate clearing flashes through his mind. As he starts to dissolve into a cloud of smoke, he says he doesn't want to blackmail him, he just wants to chat next time. He vanishes into thin air, leaving Tenma alone in the trashed office. Tenma looks at the card, knowing how huge it is to have a connection like Sengoku. Right then, a system alert pops up. He just unlocked the luck skill at level 1. It boosts his chances of finding rare items and just makes his everyday life better. He smirks, thinking that with Sengoku's help, getting rich is going to be a breeze. Plus, tracking down the demon race is going to be way easier now. The blue flame from his treasure potion finally flickers out and disappears. He checks the system shop and sees more potions, but they aren't exactly cheap. He needs to farm some points if he wants to buy that talent acquisition potion. At least Gondo Hiroki's hidden stash gave him enough cash to get started on his next move. Step 1 is getting some actual gear instead of just winging it. He heads over to the Ryuzen shopping district to pick up the essentials. He finds a high-end hunter shop and hands the assistant a long list of items. He walks out geared up with a premium backpack, shovel, and pickaxe, though it cost him nearly 2 million yen. It's a painful amount of money, but he knows he'll need it for where he's going. He checks his phone and tells himself this is just an upfront investment for the big haul. By sunset, he's out on a hillside in Yokohama, hacking away at a specific rock wall. He finally breaks through and uncovers a hidden stone archway leading underground. He heads down a long flight of stairs, nodding that the documents were right. No monsters, just a mental barrier. A massive orb of purple energy blocks the tunnel ahead. He knows an ordinary hunter would have their brain fried just trying to walk through this. He doesn't hesitate and takes a step right into the thick of it. The mental pressure hits him immediately, making him grit his teeth and grab his head. His mentality skill kicks in to help him resist the magic, but it's still an uphill battle. He tries to stay focused, reminding himself that this is just a trick meant to shake him. Spectral faces swirl around him, screaming insults and calling him a burden. The voices get louder, mocking him for even thinking he could be a hunter. All the negative emotions from his previous life come rushing back like a tidal wave. Hallucinations of his past failures scream in his face, calling him a talentless FFF-ranked trash hunter. It's a gut-wrenching feeling he's had to stomach more times than he can even count. He tells himself to stay focused. He's not that weak kid anymore and just needs to keep moving forward. His mentality skill kicks into high gear to shield him from the mental magic. Thanks to the experience multiplier, the skill level jumps straight to 51 in a matter of seconds. He leans against the cold stone wall, gasping for air as the psychic pressure finally lets up. He knows for sure he'd be a vegetable right now if he didn't have that skill to back him up. Pushing through the pain, he continues deeper into the massive, silent dungeon hall. But his relief is short-lived when he spots another purple barrier ahead, and this one looks way more intense. It's eerie how far he's come without running into a single monster. He activates memory search to pull up any intel he has on this specific gate. He recalls records statting that top-tier C-rank hunters could barely make it past the entrance. In his past life, the barrier in the depths was so powerful that even S-rank hunters couldn't break through. Eventually, this place becomes the stronghold of an undefeated Demon Legion commander. These commanders were absolute nightmares, possessing power that almost wiped out humanity. He knows that hidden behind this barrier is the high-tier gear that the future commander used. He hopes all this trouble is worth it and that the loot will actually make him rich. He steps into a narrow, dark hallway, but a heavy mechanical grinding sound suddenly fills the air. He senses something flying toward him through the dark. A hail of arrows fires from the walls, aiming right for his head. His level 10 perception and agility trigger at the exact same moment. He twists his body midair, narrowly evading the lethal bolts as they whistle past his skin. He realizes that if his stats were even slightly lower, he'd be a pincushion right now. He looks back at the arrows stuck in the stone floor, knowing there's no room for mistakes. He closes his eyes to focus, telling himself he has to react the instant he hears the trap click. Tsukishiro Tenma walks into a trap, and a barrage of arrows immediately rains down from the ceiling. He doesn't even flinch, twisting his body midair to weave through the projectiles with ease. More arrows fly in from every angle, but he deflects them with casual, precise movements. The constant pressure pays off as his mentality skill jumps straight to level 6. Tenma slides under another volley, the system marking his growth as the skill hits level 7. He flips over the next wave, and just like that, the skill hits level 8. The trap switches things up, dropping massive debris as he hits level 9. A giant boulder crashes down right behind him, pushing his mentality level up to 10. The boulder makes impact, but Tenma just stands there as the skill reaches its absolute peak at level 11. With his mentality maxed out, he gains a special bonus effect and realizes he can't even feel mental attacks anymore. The system confirms it. He's now completely immune to any negative effects from mental-type magic. Tenma takes a seat in the middle of a thick, purple fog that fills the hallway. He looks ahead, unfazed by the eerie atmosphere. This fog is apparently so intense that even S-rank hunters struggle with the mental strain, but he just keeps walking. He passes an illusion of a man on his knees, desperately begging for release. The halls are filled with ghostly memories of violence and betrayal, replaying over and over. Tenma watches an illusion of a girl brutally stabbing a man while apologizing, but he keeps his eyes forward. Thanks to his maxed-out skill, he's totally protected from the psychological toll of these visions. He maintains perfect composure, treating the horrific scenes like a boring movie. At the end of the hall, a massive knight in purple armor manifests to block his path. Tenma reaches for his hilt, ready to see if this boss is worth his time. He draws his blade, and it immediately crackles with intense blue electricity. This is the Predator of Souls, a rare item that gets stronger every time it absorbs demonic energy. With his swordsmanship at level 10, Tenma charges straight at the armored giant. The knight swings its massive, shadow-imbued sword in a wide, lethal arc. Tenma catches the blow with his own blade, sparks flying as the two powers collide. He leaps into the air, bringing his sword down on the knight's helmet with a heavy strike. He lands back on his feet, realizing his attack didn't leave a single scratch on the boss's high endurance. The knight powers up, its armor glowing with a terrifying mana and sword aura. Purple energy swirls around its feet, signaling a change in the fight's rhythm. Suddenly, the boss summons two more armored knights to even the odds. Tenma hesitates for a second, wondering if his level 20 stats can actually handle this swarm. But then, a thought crosses his mind that changes everything. He realizes that if these summons give experience points, he's found a goldmine. He's currently at level 20 with 0% progress, but that's about to change. He remembers his biggest cheat, the talent adjustment that multiplies all experience by 100,000. A wide smirk spreads across his face as he charges back into the fray. He unleashes his intimidation skill, a massive red eye manifesting as a shockwave of pressure hits the monsters. The knight is momentarily paralyzed by the sheer force of Tenma's presence. Moving like a blur, Tenma prepares a powerful Ikemanji slash. He cuts right through the boss, and it summons in one fluid, glowing motion. The heavy armor pieces hit the floor and dissolve into dark smoke, leaving nothing but loot behind. Tsukishiro Tenma activates his Untalented adjustment trait, which kicks in a massive multiplier for all his gains. The experience from the boss fight pours in, and he immediately starts power leveling through the ranks. His level keeps soaring until he finally hits level 30. On the other side of the room, the boss manifests even more dark energy as the fight intensifies. The armored monsters charge in, but Tenma is ready to meet their strike head-on. He leaps into the air, his blade glowing with an intense blue light as he prepares to drop another heavy strike. He activates multiple physical skill at once to support his rapidly surging stats. He swings his blade with everything he's got, the blue energy trail cutting through the darkness. The strike connects with a violent explosion of power, catching one of the knights right in its guard. He sticks the landing, surrounded by a massive shockwave of blue mana. The level-up messages keep scrolling by as he hits 37, 38, and then 39 in seconds. Tenma finally hits level 40 and notices the summons have stopped appearing, which is a relief. He looks up at the remaining boss, knowing it's finally time to finish this raid. He dashes forward, his blade leaving sparks on the ground as he picks up speed. The giant knight gathers all its power into one final, desperate stand. It slams its weapon down, causing the very ground to shatter and boulders to fly everywhere. Tenma doesn't slow down, activating his level 10 Ikemanji slash. He cuts through the chaos, his blade meeting the boss's strike in a blinding clash of light. He powers through the boss's defense, his sword getting closer to its mark. A massive explosion of red and white light fills the chamber as the two forces collide. He finally cuts through the knight, the impact of the final blow echoing through the dungeon. His blade, the Soul Devourer, absorbs the demonic energy and permanently increases its attack power. Because he's reached the current level cap, the system switches from giving experience to awarding shop points. The boss is officially defeated, and the system announces that it's time to distribute the clear rewards. A Chibai-style Tenma pops up to remind us that dungeons, unlike regular gates, actually provide specific loot for finishing them. Back in the chamber, a glowing orb of light descends toward Tenma, containing the item the Corps commander once held. He catches the light, and a physical object begins to manifest in his palms. It's a simple dark metal band, a ring that hums with a quiet, hidden power. He takes a closer look, thinking about how you really shouldn't judge an item by its plain appearance. The system identifies it as a unique rank ring of protection, though its core function is currently sealed. He realizes it's a growth-type item, which is perfect for someone with his specific cheats. If this ring feeds on his experience to grow, his 100,000 times multiplier is going to break it in no time. He pulls up his status window, confirming his level is currently locked at 40 with over 300 points in the bank. Since he hit the cap, the system immediately issues a new quest to break his current limits. Tenma gets an additional reward just for reaching this milestone so quickly. He checks the next objective. He needs to retrieve 3 separate demonic energy sources to unlock the next level of his power. He starts to wonder if the system already knows what he's planning for the future. He thinks back to the reason he regressed in the first place, to stop the world from ending during the demon invasion. The way everything is lining up feels a little too precise to just be a coincidence. He remembers the rift between the two worlds, where the demon forces are already gathering for a full-scale assault. The only reason they haven't invaded yet is because our world is too different, so they've started Project Demonic Energy. They're scattering highly compressed demonic relics across the planet to prep the environment for their takeover. A dark reflection of the past shows a guillotine prepared for an execution, following the shocking testimony of a traitor. In Tenma's memory, the traitor faces a crowd of angry citizens, claiming that their perspective on the invasion is entirely wrong. With his head locked in the wooden frame, the traitor shouts that the demons had been preparing for war long before humanity noticed. He reveals that the monsters were gathering demonic energy sources for a plan known as Project Demonic Energy. Tears stream down the traitor's face, as he pleads that he never knew the demons intended to completely wipe out the human race. Observing the scene, Tenma, a stern man with long black hair, watches the execution with cold, unwavering eyes. The heavy blade of the guillotine falls with a sudden and violent crash, ending the traitor's life. Back in the present, Tenma realizes that destroying the demonic energy sources is the only way to stop the invasion of the real world. He determines that dismantling this project is the absolute best strategy for humanity's survival. With his next goal set, he opens his system window to check the rewards for reaching the level limit. A blue notification confirms that a special item has been awarded due to his limit break effect. He recalls the Soul Devourer he received previously and wonders what powerful item will manifest this time. A brilliant blue light begins to coalesce in the air before him, drawing his intense curiosity. The light takes the shape of a magnificent, glowing spear that radiates an aura of overwhelming power. 1 week later, Tenma arrives at a grand urban plaza featuring a massive, domed building in the distance. Watching a happy couple walk by, he vows that he will never let this peaceful world be lost as it was before he regressed. Tenma's smartphone begins to buzz with numerous notifications from his acquaintances. He sees messages from Yuna Shurigane and Hokigondo, but he decides to ignore them and focus on the task at hand. The sprawling Hunter Training Center comes into view, its modern architecture gleaming under the clear sky. Tenma marvels at the fact that he has finally managed to visit a place of such high prestige. This center is a legendary landmark where every hunter of note has spent at least some time training. Now that he has plenty of funds, he figures he might as well make use of the facility's top-tier resources. Suddenly, a vibrant red sports car comes screeching toward him at high speed, tires smoking on the pavement. Using his level 10 perception skill, Tenma effortlessly dodges the vehicle as it slides past him. He turns back with a look of annoyance, wondering if someone was actually trying to kill him. The driver's door swings open, and a figure wearing a white hoodie steps out of the luxury car. Tenma watches as the driver approaches, their form shrouded in shadow against the bright daylight. He is stunned to recognize the person standing before him, his frustration turning into shock. It's Kirishima Teo, who beams with joy as he shouts out a greeting to his master. Teo shows off his flashy car, explaining that he bought it with the massive signing bonus from joining a guild. When Tenma asks which one he chose, Teo reveals he has officially joined the Guardian Guild. 3 massive flags represent the nation's top guilds: Guardian Sword, Silver Wings, and 5 Stars. The Guardian Guild recognized Teo's immense talent as a sword saint and recruited him immediately. Tenma realizes that a signing bonus from such a top-tier organization must have been truly astronomical. Feeling slightly awkward, Tenma asks Teo to please stop calling him master. The request leaves Teo in a state of confusion, as he's not sure what else he should call the person he admires. Tenma scratches his head and tells Teo to just call him whatever he feels comfortable with. Teo considers his options, struggling to find a title that feels just right for their relationship. Deciding to end the conversation there, Tenma bids him farewell and turns to head inside. Teo panics and quickly runs after him, shouting for Tenma to wait up. At the reception, Tenma is shocked to see that the training fees for a single session are incredibly high. Despite the cost, he decides to start by booking an A-rank room to begin his specialized training. Teo flashes a confident grin as he hands over his payment card at the training center's reception desk. The receptionist politely offers to escort the pair to the exclusive VIP training room, while Tenma browses the center's digital menu. Tenma's eyes nearly bulge out of his head when he sees the staggering 3 million yen price tag for the VIP session. Teo winks at his master and invites him along, causing Tenma to feel a wave of gratitude for his talented disciple. Inside the massive, high-tech training hall, several spectral purple dragons materialize and circle above the duo. Tenma tests out his new weapon, launching the glowing blue spear with such force that it shatters a target in a brilliant explosion. With a calm expression, Tenma speaks a single command to trigger the weapon's unique ability: retrieve. Obeying his call, the spear instantly reverses its trajectory and rockets back toward its owner's hand. Tenma catches the shaft of the blue trident with practiced ease, feeling the weapon's resonant energy. A system window displays the stats for the Spear of Retrieval, a unique rank weapon with high attack and penetration power. He notes that the retrieval function works effortlessly, responding to either his spoken words or his mere thoughts. Teo approaches with 2 swords drawn, his eyes wide with admiration as he asks about the technique Tenma just used. Tenma's throwing skill has already reached level 11, granting him significant boosts to damage, speed, and accuracy. He concludes that the spear's raw destructive potential makes it an excellent secondary weapon to complement his main arsenal. The holographic training dragons roar and dive toward the hunters, their ethereal bodies crackling with energy. Not wanting to be outdone by his mentor, Teo lunges forward with his dual blades at the ready. The Sword Saint unleashes a devastating whirlwind of slashes that tears through the pack of spectral monsters in seconds. Tenma watches the display of incredible martial prowess, acknowledging that Teo's natural swordsmanship is far beyond his own reach. Teo lands gracefully amidst the dissipating smoke of the defeated enemies, his blades still humming from the impact. Despite his impressive performance, the young swordsman seems dissatisfied with the results of his technique. He turns back to Tenma and earnestly asks for another demonstration of the legendary single-stroke slash. Tenma realizes that Teo has been struggling to perfect the move, which still lacks the final, critical element. He attempts to explain the essence of the skill, telling Teo that beyond the complex theory, he simply needs to keep swinging his blade. To demonstrate his point, Tenma leaps high into the air, preparing to show Teo the true meaning of the technique once more. Tenma executes a perfectly timed strike in the training hall. Thanks to his experience boost, his single-stroke slash skill levels up to 11 mid-swing. Kirishima Teiyo was left gasping for air, struggling to keep his balance after Tenma's display. Tenma stands totally chill, his practice blade still humming with blue energy. Teiyo is already fanboying, lunging at him to ask what that Tsukishiro-style move was. He's completely losing it over how much Tenma's skills have evolved. Tenma checks his phone as it starts vibrating in his hand. It's a call from the one and only Sengoku Kyosuke. He tells Teiyo something came up and he's heading out early. Tenma leaves the room without a second thought. Teiyo clenches his fist on the floor, promising himself he'll reach that level of power one day. Later, Tenma arrives at a quiet cafe for a meeting. Sengoku thanks him, nodding that his guild's position has improved significantly thanks to Tenma's help. He calls the whole turn of events a blessing from heaven. He sets his drink down, his tone getting more serious. He says he's the type of guy who always repays his debts. Tenma watches him, his expression unreadable. A memory of the fallen world hits, showing a time when the two were survivors among ruins. Back then, Sengoku made it clear he wasn't doing anyone any favors for free. He told Tenma to bring useful info or abilities if he wanted a chance at surviving. To Tenma, he was nothing like the other heroes. He was cold and efficient. Everything he did was based on meticulous calculation, even when the world was ending. Back in the present, Tenma realizes he's finally in a position where the broker actually needs him. He pulls out a heavy bag and thumps it onto the table. Sengoku peers inside, clearly surprised by the contents. It's a massive hoard of mana crystals Tenma swiped from Gondo's secret dungeon. Tenma suggests they make this an ongoing arrangement. Sengoku is intrigued. Moving this much product usually requires a whole guild's trust. Tenma knows that as long as there's money involved, Sengoku won't care about the logistics. The broker smiles and agrees, promising never to go back on his word. He adds that the treasure acquisition potion has been incredible for his business. Tenma slides a folded piece of paper across the table. Sengoku scans the list of cryptic names and locations with interest. Tenma admits he has the broad strokes, but needs Sengoku to fill in the critical details. He's specifically after information regarding a source of demonic energy. He asks Sengoku to use his unique abilities to track it down. Sengoku sighs, realizing this is turning into a much bigger job than he thought. Tenma asks if he can lend a hand, and Sengoku is all for it. Then the broker drops Tenma's full title, surprising him with how much he knows. He reveals they're prepping for a special dungeon with a strict D-rank limit. Tenma realizes this familiar rush is exactly why he was called here. Sengoku shows him a tablet with the Jewel of Aldoria. He needs it, and he needs Tenma to get it. Tenma mulls over the name Jewel of Aldoria, wondering where he's heard it before. He asks Sengoku if he's the only one joining the raid, and the broker tells him there are other talented D-ranks involved. Sengoku asks if he'd like to head out and meet the rest of the team right away. The scene shifts to a lush, mountainous forest area far from the city. Tenma arrives at the meeting spot and gives a quick, polite greeting to the people waiting there. He takes a moment to size them up, wondering about the exceptional talent Sengoku mentioned. He can't help but wonder if these are really the people he's supposed to clear a dungeon with. A massive guy with a shield, Yakumo Masayoshi, introduces himself as the team's 27-year-old tank. Tenma immediately recognizes the name, Ironwall Yakumo, from his future memories. He knows the guy's reputation as a rookie killer with a personality that's the complete opposite of his heroic name. Then a nervous-looking kid with freckles introduces himself as Yazaki Jin, a lightning mage. Tenma knows the truth. This is the lightning psychopath who will one day be responsible for a mountain of bodies. He realizes Sengoku Kyosuke really is a meritocrat at heart, picking partners based purely on power regardless of their sanity. A girl with a pink bob speaks up next, mentioning her primary weapon is a dagger. She catches Tenma staring and immediately asks what he's looking at. She's blunt, saying they should skip the introductions and just focus on getting the job done. Suddenly it clicks for Tenma. This is Hashimori Akin. He smiles to himself, thinking Sengoku actually managed to recruit one decent person for the squad. He looks at her and sees her future self, a member of the legendary Final 11 and one of the world's few SSS rank hunters. Hashimori Akin, the future phantom thief of the Final 11, readies her blades for a legendary raid. In that ruined future, every survivor carried a heavy burden of loss and despair. The faces of the broken world are etched with the trauma of families lost and promises unkept. Among them were the eccentrics, individuals driven to madness by the horrors they endured. Akin was one of them, a woman who lived only to take what she needed from a dying world. She was indiscriminate, stealing from monsters and humans alike just to survive another day. Back in the present, Tenma watches her, knowing exactly the kind of monster she's destined to become. Akin notices his gaze and bluntly asks who he is, her hand hovering near her weapon. Tenma keeps it simple, introducing himself as a D-rank hunter who's handy with a sword. Yakumo laughs to break the ice and tells the group it's time to head inside the dungeon. The party gathers at the edge of a cliff, facing a massive, swirling golden rift. Tenma takes a steady breath as they prepare to enter the special dungeon. A notification pops up confirming that the entire team meets the rank requirements for entry. The transition is blinding, forcing Tenma to shield his eyes from the sudden glare. They emerge into a harsh desert wasteland, with the sun beating down on the endless dunes. The heat is immediate and overwhelming. Yakumo quickly pulls out some supplies to help the group cope. He cracks open a box of magic ice cool packs, a rare luxury in such a place. Tenma is impressed by the preparation. It seems they did their homework before coming here. The cool mist revitalizes Akin. Yakumo takes point, ordering the team to move out. The four hunters set off across the sand, tiny specks in the vast, golden landscape. Tenma taps Yakumo's shoulder, a serious look crossing his face. His perception skill is screaming at him. There are multiple targets hiding just beneath the surface. Yakumo squints at the shimmering horizon, but doesn't see anything out of the ordinary. He tells Tenma not to worry. He's the leader and he's got their backs. Right on cue, the sand ahead erupts in a violent explosion of grit and dust. A massive armored desert scorpion claws its way out of the ground, tail raised. More of the creatures surface all around them, cutting off any easy escape. Yakumo tells everyone to stay behind him, standing tall against the encroaching swarm. He slams his shield down and activates provocation, drawing every scorpion's attention to himself. The monsters screech and charge, lured in by the pulsing green energy of his skill. The swarm crashes against Yakumo's shield, but he holds firm, soaking up the impact for his team. Their bandage-wrapped companion takes advantage of the distraction, charging up a sphere of lightning. He fires a concentrated beam of electricity that pierces straight through the lead monster. The bolt triggers a chain reaction of lightning, blasting the scorpions back in a cloud of smoke. Akin doesn't waste the opening, leaping over the fray with her daggers drawn. She's a whirlwind of steel, expertly dismantling the dazed monsters before they can recover. Within seconds, the desert is quiet again, littered with the broken shells of the scorpions. Yakumo is pleased with the teamwork, though Akin acts like it was barely worth the effort. Tenma claps for them, realizing this group might actually be able to hold their own. Akin notices him standing back and asks why he hasn't lifted a finger yet. Tenma doesn't answer. He feels a deep, ominous vibration shaking the entire dune. His eyes narrow as he warns them that the real fight is just getting started. Before anyone can react, a massive chitinous pincer erupts from the dunes, snapping shut around Akin. The force of the attack drags her upward, lifting her off her feet as the monster prepares to pull her into the abyss. The sand falls away to reveal a colossal desert centipede, a nightmare creature that towers over the entire team. Yakumo frantically bangs his axe against his shield, trying to draw the beast's aggro with his glowing green aura. It's no use. A system prompt informs him that the level difference is so vast his provocation is basically a suggestion. Tenma remains stoic, his eyes tracking the creature's erratic movements as he prepares to make his move. A memory of a colder time resurfaces, a small campfire burning amidst the ruins of a forgotten city. A young Kyoya is gently shaken awake, the weight of the dark world pressing down on the small camp. Tenma then whispered for him to stay quiet, leading him away from the sleeping hunters toward a secluded spot. Tenma begins digging into the rubble, and a curious Kyoya asks what could possibly be buried here. With a look of genuine pride, the man pulls a hidden container from the hole. Kyoya gasps at the sight, a bucket overflowing with colorful snacks and cold drinks, a fortune in this ruined world. Tenma explains he's been scrounging and saving for weeks, just to give the boy a proper birthday. In that moment, Tenma's tired eyes reflected a hope that didn't belong in a place like this. Kyoya is moved to tears, thanking the only person who still treats him like a child instead of a burden. He's told to eat up quickly and hide the evidence so they don't have to share their meager celebration. But the air suddenly shifts, and a sharp whistling sound cuts through the crackling of the fire. A hooded figure lands silently in the shadows, pink hair peeking through the folds of a dark cloak. Tenma's voice trembled as he recognized the infamous phantom thief, Hashimori Akin. Her eyes gleam with a predatory light as she ignores the humans and focuses on the pile of food. Tenma tried to stand in her way, but she took him down with a speed that defied the laws of physics. She stands over the hard-earned gifts, her gaze cold and empty of any remorse. With a casual pop, she opens one of the cans, the fizz of the soda sounding like a death knell. She drinks it down in one go, mocking their desperate struggle for a moment of normalcy. In minutes, the treasures are gone, leaving behind nothing but empty wrappers and a broken boy. Kyoya and Tenma can only stare at the trash, their one spark of joy extinguished by her greed. Back in the present, Akin doesn't even remember the lives she shattered to fill her own belly. To her, those stolen snacks were just another win in a long game of survival. But karma has a funny way of catching up, and now she's the one screaming as the giant centipede shakes her like a toy. Tenma watches her struggle with a cold, distant smirk, thinking she's finally getting exactly what she deserves. Yakumo is being crushed under the monster's weight, his defensive skill barely holding the line against the pincer's grip. Tenma screamed at him to use his shield, hopping to gain an opening to get close to the monster. Tenma finally kicks into gear, his body blurring as he sprints across the shifting sands. Tenma leaped forward and kicked off his teammate's shield. With their combined efforts, Tenma soared through the air, heading straight for the giant scorpion's head. In a burst of blue energy, Tenma summons the recovery spear, the weapon humming with raw power. He knows the creature's weak point is its head, and he doesn't plan on missing. His high-level throwing skill activates, focusing all his strength into a single, devastating projectile. The spear flies true, hitting the centipede with the force of a falling star and erupting in a massive shockwave. Chitin and blue ichor spray across the dunes as the behemoth is literally vaporized by the impact. As the dust settles, Tenma casually drags a dazed Akin out of the sand by her feet. Yakumo and their companion can only gape at the crater, wondering just how much power this D-rank hunter is really hiding. Tenma stands over Akin, his expression unreadable as he watches her struggle to regain her composure. Akin looks up, blinking in confusion as she realizes she's back on solid ground. But the relief is short-lived. A low rumble vibrates through the sand, and the dunes begin to collapse inward. Yakumo raises his shield as a massive sinkhole opens beneath them, threatening to swallow the entire group. "It's an Antlion pit," he roars, urging everyone to scramble for higher ground before the shifting sand drags them down. Akin finds herself sliding toward the center of the vortex, screaming in frustration as her bad luck strikes yet again. Tenma watches her with a slight, knowing smirk, seeing this as a fitting piece of karmic retribution for her future self's crimes. From a nearby ridge, two men in sharp black suits observe the chaos, their eyes fixed on the struggling hunters. One of the subordinates mentions that the guildmaster ordered them to resolve the situation quietly without drawing unnecessary attention. They are here to recover the source of the demonic energy, and they can't afford to let anyone else stumble upon it first. One of the men wonders if cleaning it up quietly, means they have permission to eliminate the other hunters on sight. High above them on a rocky outcrop, Himuro Riku, a high-ranking member of the Kaketsu Guild, crouches with a sadistic grin. Kaketsu is known as one of the nation's leading mid-sized guilds, presenting a respectable facade to the public. In reality, it is a haven for villain hunters who have committed unspeakable crimes, from robbery to cold-blooded murder. Their headquarters looms over the city, a modern monument built on a foundation of blood and corruption. Inside the executive office, a report is delivered confirming that Himuro Riku has already entered the dungeon. The man behind the desk, Hiroki Igarashi, listens with a grim expression, the weight of his secret dealings pressing down on him. A traitor to humanity, he gives the order to kill anyone who might interfere with their recovery operation. Known as the traitor of humanity, in the future Tenma remembers, Igarashi is a man who would burn the world to save himself. The subordinate bows and exits the room, leaving the guildmaster to his anxious thoughts. Alone in his office, Igarashi's calm facade cracks as the stress of his situation boils over. He slams his fist onto the mahogany desk, the wood splintering under the force of his desperation. He knows that if he fails to secure the demonic energy source, his life is as good as over. The shadow of that person looms in his mind, a monstrous presence with glowing red eyes that demands absolute success. Back in the dungeon, the wind howls over the dunes as the Kaketsu members wait for the right moment to strike. Himuro Riku cracks his knuckles, his shark-like teeth gleaming as he grows impatient for the slaughter to begin. The lead subordinate tries to assert his authority, warning Himuro not to cause trouble that could jeopardize the mission. Without warning, Himuro's hand flashes out, seizing the man's face in a crushing, iron-tight grip. He slams the leader's head against the ground with terrifying force, his eyes wide with unhinged bloodlust. Blood splatters onto the sand as the subordinate collapses, his authority silenced in an instant. The other men can only watch in horror as their comrade is brutalized by their own supposed ally. Himuro stands over the broken man, declaring that everyone present is either going to fight or die by his hand. "You crazy bastard," the subordinate gasps, unable to comprehend the senseless violence. Himuro just laughs, wiping blood from his face and explaining that he doesn't need a reason to kill. It's simply fun. He revels in the terror he sees, a true predator who finds ecstasy in the suffering of others. He licks the warm blood from his fingers, his blue eyes shimmering with a manic, uncontainable glee. The subordinate's screams of agony are like music to his ears, fueling his desire for more carnage. He stands tall on the rocky peak, a demonic silhouette against the vast desert sky. He looks down at Tenma's party, counting his targets with the excitement of a child about to open a gift. 1 against 4. I can't wait to see the looks on their faces when I tear them apart, he whispers to the wind. As the sun sets, the temperature in the dungeon plummets, turning the scorching day into a frigid moonlit night. Tenma's group gathers around a crackling campfire, seeking warmth and a moment of peace before the inevitable storm. Yakumo Masayoshi leans back by the fire, his eyes shining with ambition as he shares his grand vision for the future. He speaks of founding a guild that is truly free, one that isn't bound by the stifling rules of any association or government. Tenma watches him in silence, his expression grim as he recalls the dark path this man will eventually take, one of tyranny and violence. The lightning mage, huddled by the fire, immediately declined the offer, stating he had his own path to follow. Tenma's gaze flickered toward the lightning mage, knowing all too well that his path involved the senseless slaughter of innocent civilians. Akin also turns down the invitation, her casual dismissal masking the secret nature of her own aspirations. She brightly declares her intention to join the Hunter Association and become a righteous hero who sacrifices herself for others. Tenma can't help but feel a pang of irony, knowing that this future hero will instead become one of the most notorious thieves in history. Tired of the idle chatter, Tenma stands up and begins to walk into the darkness of the desert night. Akin calls out to him, asking where he's going, but he simply replies that he's going to explore the area. He knows he can't afford to waste time. The information from his previous life points directly to the pyramid as the heart of the dungeon. As he nears the massive stone structure, his mind activates a memory search, pinpointing the location of the demonic energy source. He triggers his level 10 perception skill, feeling his senses expand as the system confirms a massive gain in experience. Suddenly, he feels a presence tailing him and spins around, his reflexes sharp and ready for a potential threat. He lunges into the shadows, his hand clamping firmly onto the wrist of his pursuer before they can react. A sharp cry of pain rings out as Akin stumbles forward, clutching her arm and complaining about his rough treatment. Tenma is unimpressed, asking how she managed to find him since she claimed to have snuck in. She admits that the other two men at the camp were making her uneasy, and she felt safer sticking with him. Tenma considers her presence, realizing that her unique skills might actually make retrieving the demonic energy much easier. "Follow me," he commands, his voice firm as he turns back toward the looming silhouette of the pyramid. He leads her to the entrance of the ancient tomb, cryptically telling her that the thing she desires most is hidden deep within. Akin's crisis perception skill flares to life, warning her of the immense danger, but she still finds time to mock Tenma for his earlier mishaps. He brushes off her comments with a confident smirk, promising her that the rewards will far outweigh the risks if she stays by his side. With a final, determined look, Tenma steps into the dark corridor of the pyramid, Akin following tentatively behind him. Hashimori Akin is having second thoughts as she takes another look at the guy with her. She thinks he's actually kind of handsome, and since he already saved her life, she figures she can probably trust him for now. "Wait a minute," she shouts, sprinting down the stairs to catch up with him. She warns him that if he makes her lose out on the loot, she won't be forgiving. Tsukishiro Tenma is deep in thought, figuring out why her crisis perception skill didn't trigger earlier in the dungeon. He concludes that the system must have known he was going to save her, so it didn't register the situation as a real threat. If it's ultimately going to be safe, the warning won't go off. As they walk through the dim tunnel, the pink-haired girl notices that the heavy, ominous feeling she had since they arrived has completely vanished. "Huh," she mutters, scratching her head in confusion. The feeling just went away all of a sudden. Tenma tells her to stop worrying and just follow him. He warns her that as long as she doesn't do anything unnecessary, they'll be fine. She snaps back that she hasn't done anything yet. More importantly, her instincts are telling her something is waiting just around the corner. The protagonist ignores her protest and just keeps moving, telling her to keep up. Suddenly, a system window pops up. His perception skill has reached level 11, unlocking a new ability to see his party members' system messages. "Come over here," she calls. Akin takes off running, eager to show him what her crisis perception can really do. He stands back and watches as she sprints into a dark hallway, asking her if she's sure everything is fine. A massive stone boulder comes barreling down the hall, and she's in a full-blown sprint to stay ahead of it. "That's strange, this usually never happens," she yells. Tenma just looks on, asking if her big plan is just to keep running away. He steps in and unleashes a single-stroke slash, shattering the giant boulder into pieces with a burst of blue energy. Akin stares at him, completely shocked. She asks if he's really just a D-rank hunter, given how easily he handled that. Tenma activates his perception skill again. He can feel something lurking right beneath them. He brings his foot down hard on the cracked stone floor. The ground gives way, revealing a hidden set of stairs. He tells her he found a shortcut. She looks at him with a mix of awe and suspicion, wondering who this guy actually is. They emerge into a giant hall, where a massive figure is waiting at the end. Akin's eyes widen. She realizes they're staring down the boss of the dungeon. They stand before a giant stone sphinx. Tenma recalls hearing that this thing holds the source of all the demonic energy in the area. The stone guardian's voice booms through the room, telling them they must face the trial of the sandstorm. Akin is already losing it, panicking about why she has to be part of any trial. Dozens of magical circles begin to glow on the floor all around the Sphinx. Massive explosions of sand and fire erupt everywhere, turning the chamber into a war zone. Amidst the flames, she asks what they're supposed to do. He points up and tells her they're getting on top of the Sphinx. They scramble up the side of the stone colossus as fireballs burst all around them. They manage to land safely on top of its head. Akin catches her breath and asks if the trial is just surviving these explosions. Tenma says that's part of it, but they're going to do things their way. He tells her to get ready. For what? She asks. He looks her in the eye and tells her they're going to do some stealing. The girl flinches in surprise. He tells her it's the thing she's actually best at. He reaches out and grabs her arm before she can back away. The protagonist reveals that he knows all about her steal skill, reminding her of how she swiped everyone's wallets earlier. She's completely flustered, not knowing how he found out her secret. She tries to act tough, asking why she should have to follow his orders. The Sphinx begins to glow with an intense, blinding red light as the room heats up even more. A massive explosion rocks the Sphinx's head where they're standing. Tenma shouts over the noise, telling her to hurry up and move. He gives her a final choice. If she doesn't want to die here, she has to use her skill to steal from the Sphinx itself. She looks terrified but determined.